I've never been kissed. The confession hung in the air between them like a challenge, like a dare, like the most dangerous truth Caleb Turner had heard in 5 years. Because this wasn't just any woman sitting in his kitchen at midnight. This was Mara Bennett, his daughter's teacher, the woman who'd somehow slipped past every wall he'd built, the one person who could destroy the careful life he'd constructed from the ruins of his marriage. One kiss could cost her career. One kiss could shatter his daughter's trust. One kiss could break all three of them. But some rules, he was learning, were made to be broken. Before we dive into this story, I invite you to journey with me until the very end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now, let's begin. Caleb Turner understood structures. As an architect, he'd spent 15 years designing buildings that could withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and time itself. But no amount of professional expertise had prepared him for the complete structural failure of his marriage. The day Amanda left, she didn't take much. A suitcase, her laptop, the framed photo of herself from their wedding day. Not the one of them together, just her alone. What she left behind was far more devastating. A 12-year-old girl sitting on the stairs, clutching her sketchbook, tears streaming silently down her face as she watched her mother's car disappear down Maple Street. That was 5 years ago. In the years since, Caleb had rebuilt their lives with the same precision he brought to his blueprints. Every decision, every choice, every moment was engineered around one central pillar, Lila's stability. His daughter had been shattered by abandonment, and he would spend the rest of his life making sure she never felt that pain again. The rules were simple, absolute, non-negotiable. Rule 1, Lila comes first, always, no exceptions. Rule 2, no romantic entanglements that touch Lila's world. No dating teachers, coaches, or anyone connected to her life. Rule 3, guard your heart like you guard hers. Loss leaves scars. Don't risk new ones. For 5 years, these rules had served him well. He'd turned down dates, ignored advances, and kept every potential relationship at arm's length. His world consisted of 2 things, his daughter and his work. It was clean, controlled, safe. And then, on a rain-soaked Tuesday in September, Mara Bennett walked into their lives and began dismantling everything he thought he knew about survival. The first time Caleb saw Mara, he was late for parent-teacher conferences. Again. He'd been stuck on a conference call with a difficult client in Portland, and by the time he'd raced across town to Riverside Middle School, the hallways were nearly empty. He found room 207 at the end of the arts wing, slightly out of breath and rehearsing his apology. Through the small window in the door, he could see Lila sitting at a table covered with sketches, talking animatedly to someone he couldn't quite see. His daughter was smiling, really smiling, the kind of genuine, unguarded smile he hadn't seen since before Amanda left. Caleb pushed open the door, and that's when he saw her. Mara Bennett was younger than he'd expected, maybe early 30s, though he was terrible at guessing ages. She wore paint-stained jeans and a loose sweater, the color of autumn leaves, her dark hair pulled back in a messy bun that somehow looked intentional. But what struck him most were her eyes. Warm, attentive, completely focused on Lila, as if his daughter were the only person in the world who mattered. "Mr. Turner," she said, standing and extending her hand. "I'm so glad you could make it. Lila's been showing me her latest series." Her handshake was firm, her palm marked with what looked like charcoal smudges. Up close, he could see tiny flecks of paint on her collar, and a small scar above her left eyebrow. "I'm sorry I'm late," Caleb said, suddenly aware that he was still wearing his jacket and probably looked as frazzled as he felt. "Client emergency." "No worries at all. We've been having a great time." Mara gestured to the table, which was covered with Lila's drawings. "Your daughter has a remarkable gift, Mr. Turner. These aren't just technically proficient, they tell stories." Caleb looked at the sketches with fresh eyes. He'd always known Lila was talented, but he'd seen her art as therapy, a way to process her feelings. He'd never really understood it as communication. "This one," Mara said, picking up a drawing of their house at night, windows glowing gold against a dark sky. "Tells me she feels safe at home, protected." "But see these shadows in the corners? There's still some processing happening, some healing." Caleb felt something shift in his chest. This woman, this teacher, had seen his daughter more clearly in a few weeks than most people did in years. And this, Mara continued, selecting another sketch, this one of a woman with her back turned, walking away. This is powerful. The way she's used negative space to show absence, the emptiness where connection should be, it's devastating and beautiful. Miss, it was the mother sketch. Lila drew variations of it constantly, had been drawing them for 5 years. Caleb usually tried not to look at them too closely. They hurt too much. I don't know what to do with those, Caleb admitted quietly, aware that Lila was watching them both. I don't know how to help her process that. Mara met his eyes, and he saw understanding there. Not pity, but genuine comprehension of pain. You're already helping, she said softly. You showed up. You stayed. You're here. That's everything, Mr. Turner. Something about the way she said it made Caleb believe she wasn't just talking about parent-teacher conferences. Call me Caleb, he said. Mr. Turner makes me feel ancient. Mara smiled, and he noticed the way it reached her eyes, crinkling the corners. Only if you call me Mara. Ms. Bennett makes me feel like a Victorian governess. Lila giggled, the sound bright in the quiet classroom. Ms. B is the coolest teacher in the whole school, Dad. She actually gets art. And she plays music while we work. And she brings her dog to school on Fridays. Your dog? Caleb raised an eyebrow. Therapy dog, Mara corrected, her smile turning slightly sheepish. Well, technically my dog, who happens to be very therapeutic. Picasso. He's a golden retriever with absolutely no artistic talent, but excellent emotional intelligence. Caleb found himself smiling despite the exhaustion pulling at his shoulders. There was something disarming about this woman, something that made the careful walls he'd built feel suddenly negotiable. They talked for another 20 minutes about Lila's progress, her submission to the district art competition, and the advanced portfolio program Mara wanted to recommend her for. But beneath the professional conversation, Caleb found himself noticing other things. The way Mara's hands moved when she talked, painting pictures in the air, the passion in her voice when she discussed teaching, the careful way she included Lila in every part of the conversation, never talking about her as if she weren't there. By the time they said goodbye, something had shifted. Caleb told himself it was gratitude, relief that Lila had found a teacher who truly saw her. But walking to the car with his daughter, her hand tucked into his, he couldn't quite shake the memory of Mara's smile or the strange flutter in his chest when she'd looked at him. I told you she was awesome, Lila said, bouncing slightly as they walked. She's the best. She seems very dedicated, Caleb said carefully, keeping his tone neutral. Lila shot him a knowing look far too perceptive for a 12-year-old. She's pretty too, right? Lila. What? I'm just saying, you noticed. I saw you notice. I noticed that she's a good teacher, Caleb said firmly, opening the car door for his daughter. That's all that matters. But Lila's grin suggested she knew better, and as Caleb drove them home through the rain-slicked streets, he tried very hard not to think about warm brown eyes, or paint-stained fingers, or the way his heart had stuttered when Mara Bennett smiled. Rule 2, he reminded himself, no romantic entanglements with anyone in Lila's world. Some rules existed for good reasons. October arrived with the kind of perfect autumn weather that made Seattle almost worth the 9 months of gray. Golden leaves lined the streets, the air carried the scent of wood smoke and approaching rain, and Lila's mood improved with each passing day. She came home from school talking about Ms. B constantly. Ms. B had shown them a new watercolor technique. Ms. B had let them listen to jazz while they worked. Ms. B had suggested Lila try painting larger, bolder, more ambitious. Caleb was grateful, truly. After years of watching his daughter retreat into herself, seeing her excited about school felt like witnessing a miracle. But with each Ms. B said and Ms. B thinks, he felt something else too. A growing awareness of the woman behind the title, and an unwelcome curiosity about who Mara Bennett was when she wasn't teaching. He tried to ignore it, tried to focus on work, on Lila, on the house renovation he'd been putting off for years. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The first crack appeared on a Thursday evening when Caleb picked Lila up from after-school art club. He was early, a rare occurrence, and found himself waiting in the hallway outside room 207, listening to music and laughter spilling through the doorway. Okay, everyone, that's time. Mara's voice carried into the hall, warm and energetic. Remember, the district competition submissions are due next Friday. If you need extra time in the studio, just let me know. We'll figure it out. Students began streaming out, chattering and laughing, portfolio bags slung over shoulders. A few nodded at Caleb as they passed, and one, a tall boy with purple streaked hair, stopped. You're Lila's dad, right? Your daughter's insanely talented, dude. Her piece is going to destroy at districts. Thanks, Caleb said, surprised and pleased. I'll tell her you said so. Tell Ms. B, too. She's the reason we're all getting so much better. She actually makes us believe we can do this, you know? The boy headed off, and Caleb stood there, processing. He'd known Mara was a good teacher. Lila had made that clear, but he hadn't realized the extent of her impact, the way she seemed to touch every student who walked through her classroom. Dad! Lila appeared in the doorway, portfolio under her arm, face flushed with excitement. Did you see the sketches I left on the table? Ms. B thinks I should submit the whole series, not just one piece. She says it tells a better story as a collection. That sounds like a great idea, Caleb said, but his attention had drifted past his daughter to the classroom beyond. Mara was cleaning up, gathering scattered charcoal sticks and stacking portfolios. She'd changed since the first time he'd seen her, traded the paint-stained jeans for black slacks and a soft gray cardigan, though there were still traces of chalk on her hands. Her hair was down today, falling past her shoulders in waves that caught the overhead lights. She looked up, caught him watching, and smiled. Hey, Caleb, how's the architecture business? Busy, he said, stepping into the classroom. How's the art education business? Chaotic and wonderful. She gestured at the organized chaos around them. 27 seventh graders, all convinced they're either the next Picasso or completely talentless. My job is convincing them they're all artists. They just need to find their voice. Seems like you're doing a pretty good job. One of Lila's classmates just stopped me in the hall to tell me you're changing their lives. Mara's cheeks colored slightly. I love what I do, and I have incredible students, like this one. She nodded at Lila, who was carefully packing her supplies. Speaking of which, Lila, can I steal your dad for just a minute? There's something I want to discuss with him. Lila glanced between them, a small smile playing at her lips. Sure, I'll wait in the hall. You don't have to, Caleb started, but his daughter was already slipping out the door, leaving them alone. The sudden intimacy of the empty classroom felt charged, though Caleb told himself that was ridiculous. This was parent-teacher business, nothing more. Is everything okay? He asked, concerned. Is Lila having trouble? Oh no, the opposite, actually. Mara leaned against her desk, arms crossed loosely. I want to talk to you about the state showcase. It's a bigger competition, much more competitive than districts. Only the top artists from each region get invited, and I think Lila's ready. That's amazing. It is. But it's also intense. The showcase is in March, which means 6 months of serious preparation. Extra studio time, one-on-one mentoring, portfolio development. It's a big commitment, and I wanted to make sure you're on board before I approach Lila about it. Caleb studied her, trying to understand the subtext. This mentoring, it would be you? If you're comfortable with that, I usually take on 2 or 3 showcase students each year, give them access to the studio after hours, work with them on weekends when needed. It's all above board, of course. School sanctioned with proper protocols. She said it casually, professionally, but Caleb caught something in her expression, a flicker of uncertainty, as if she was waiting for him to object. Why Lila? He asked. I mean, I know she's talented, but there must be other students. Because she has something special, Mara interrupted, her intensity sudden and genuine. It's not just technical skill, though she has that in spades. It's the way she sees the world, the stories she tells, the emotion she pours into every line. That's not something you can teach, Caleb. That's a gift. The way she said his name sent an unexpected shiver down his spine. He tried to ignore it. And you think this showcase could help her? I think it could open doors. Art scholarships, summer programs, connections with other young artists. But more than that, I think it could help her see herself differently. Not as the girl whose mother left, but as an artist, a creator, someone with a voice that matters. Caleb felt his throat tighten. This woman barely knew his daughter, Yet she understood exactly what Lila needed. Not protection or pity, but recognition, purpose. Then yes, he said quietly. Absolutely yes. Whatever she needs. Mara's smile was radiant. Thank you. I promise I'll take good care of her. This is important to me too. I can tell. Caleb found himself moving closer, drawn by something he couldn't name. You really love teaching. I really love art, Mara corrected. Teaching is how I share it, how I help others find what saved me. Saved you? She paused, seemed to weigh whether to continue. Then, with a small shrug, I lost my mom when I was 14. Cancer. Fast and brutal. Art was the only way I could process it, the only language I had for that kind of pain. My teachers saw that, nurtured it, gave me a space to grieve and create and eventually heal. I guess I'm just paying it forward. Caleb's chest constricted. I'm so sorry. That must have been devastating. It was. Still is some days. But it taught me that we survive the impossible, that we find ways to rebuild, even when we're certain we can't. She met his eyes directly. I imagine you understand that. He did, perhaps more than he wanted to admit. Lila told you, he said. It wasn't a question. Not the details, just that her mom left when she was younger. That it's been just the two of you for a while. Mara's voice was gentle, careful. I don't need to know more than that, Caleb. Everyone's story is their own. Amanda, my ex-wife, she walked out 5 years ago. Decided motherhood wasn't for her. Decided we weren't enough. The words came easier than expected, maybe because Mara was looking at him with understanding instead of pity. I don't blame her anymore. Not really. But I'm still trying to help Lila make sense of it. You're doing an incredible job, Mara said softly. She's confident, creative, emotionally intelligent. That doesn't happen by accident. Sometimes I feel like I'm just holding on, hoping I don't screw her up worse. Welcome to parenting, Mara said with a small smile. I think that's everyone's secret fear. But from where I'm standing, you're getting it right. The conversation shifted after that, moving to logistics and schedules and permission forms. But something had changed in the space between them, a recognition, an acknowledgement of shared pain and survival. By the time Caleb left with Lila, his mind was spinning with thoughts he had no business entertaining. In the car, Lila was uncharacteristically quiet. You okay? Caleb asked, glancing at her. Ms. B likes you, Lila said matter-of-factly. Like, really likes you. She's my daughter's teacher. We have a professional relationship. Dad, I'm 12, not blind. She looks at you the same way you look at blueprints, like she's trying to figure out how all the pieces fit together. Caleb's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You're imagining things. Am I? Lila turned in her seat to face him. Would it be so terrible if she did like you? And if you liked her back? Lila, I'm just saying, it's been 5 years. Mom's not coming back. You're allowed to be happy, Dad. I am happy, Caleb insisted. I have you. That's enough. Lila was quiet for a moment, then said softly, But what happens when I'm not? When I go to college, or move out, or have my own life? What then? Caleb didn't have an answer. He'd built his entire existence around being Lila's father, around making sure she was stable and safe and loved. The idea of a life beyond that felt both impossible and terrifying. That night, long after Lila had gone to bed, Caleb sat at his drafting table trying to focus on the commercial building he was designing. But his mind kept drifting to paint-stained fingers and warm brown eyes, and the way Mara had said, "We survived the impossible." He pulled out his phone, scrolled to the school website, and before he could stop himself, clicked on the staff directory. Mara's photo was small, professional, her hair pulled back, wearing a blazer that looked wildly out of character. But her smile was the same, reaching her eyes, inviting and warm. Caleb closed the browser quickly, guilt flooding through him. Rule 2, he reminded himself. No romantic entanglements with anyone in Lila's world. But the rule felt different now. Less like wisdom and more like a cage. The mentoring sessions began in early November. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Caleb would pick Lila up from the art studio at 6, and every time, he'd find her covered in paint or charcoal, glowing with creative energy, talking a mile a minute about perspective or composition or negative space. And every time, Mara would walk them out to the parking lot, discussing Lila's progress, offering encouragement, sharing small insights about art and life that lingered with Caleb long after they'd driven away. It was professional, appropriate, completely innocent, and yet Caleb found himself looking forward to those brief conversations with an intensity that worried him. Found himself wondering what Mara did on weekends, whether she was dating anyone, what her laugh sounded like outside the careful boundaries of school grounds. He tried to ignore it, threw himself into work, took on extra projects, spent more time with Lila. But the awareness was there, constant and growing, like a crack in a foundation that widened a little more each day. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in mid-November. Seattle was experiencing one of its legendary downpours, the kind of rain that turned streets into rivers and made visibility nearly impossible. Caleb had worked late, and by the time he reached the school, it was past 6:30. He found the art wing nearly dark, most classrooms locked up for the night. But light spilled from room 207, and through the rain-streaked window, he could see Mara and Lila working together at a large canvas. Caleb stood in the hallway, water dripping from his jacket, and watched. Mara was showing Lila something, a brush technique maybe, her hand guiding his daughter's. Both of them focused completely on the emerging image. The scene was so natural, so easy, that it took his breath away. This was what Lila had needed. Not just a teacher, but a mentor. A maternal presence that wasn't trying to replace Amanda, but simply offering guidance, support, care. And Caleb needed to stop standing in hallways watching Mara Bennett like some lovesick teenager. He knocked on the door frame. Both heads turned, and he saw Mara's face light up before she caught herself, her expression shifting to something more professional. "Caleb, come in. We lost track of time, got caught up in this piece. Lila's experimenting with layering." "It's okay," Caleb said, stepping into the warmth of the classroom. "I'm later than planned anyway." Client meeting ran long. "Story of your life," Lila said, grinning at him. "But look what we made." She gestured to the canvas with pride. It was a portrait, abstract but recognizable, of their house. But unlike her earlier sketches, this one was full of color and light, windows blazing gold against a deep blue sky, flowers in the garden, even a figure on the porch swing that looked suspiciously like Caleb himself. "Lila, this is beautiful," he said, genuinely moved. "When did you start working in color?" "Ms. B convinced me to try it. Said my black and white stuff was powerful, but color could add a whole new dimension, tell a different kind of story." "A story about home," Mara added quietly. "About belonging and safety and love. We've been talking about how art can be more than processing pain. It can also celebrate joy." Caleb looked at her, and their eyes met over Lila's head. The moment stretched, heavy with unspoken things, until Lila cleared her throat dramatically. "Okay, so I need to clean my brushes. Be right back." She disappeared into the supply closet, leaving them alone in the too quiet classroom. "Thank you," Caleb said into the silence. "For this. For seeing her. For helping her find joy again." "She makes it easy," Mara replied, moving closer. "She's special, Caleb. Truly." "So are you." The words escaped before he could stop them, and he watched Mara's eyes widen, her breath catch. "I mean, as a teacher, you're special as a teacher. To Lila. For Lila." "Right," Mara said softly. "Of course." But neither of them moved. The space between them felt charged, dangerous, like standing too close to the edge of something high and uncertain. "I should probably," Caleb started. "Yeah, of course," Mara said at the same time. They both stopped, shared an awkward laugh, and then Lila was back, breaking the tension with cheerful obliviousness. "Ready to go, Dad? I'm starving. Can we get Thai food?" "Sure, sweetheart. Let me just grab your stuff." As they packed up Lila's supplies, Caleb was hyper-aware of Mara's presence, the way she moved around the classroom, tidying up, turning off lights. When they finally headed for the door, she walked them out, umbrella in hand. The parking lot was a lake, rain hammering down with autumn fury. Caleb's truck was parked at the far end, and he'd forgotten his umbrella entirely. "Here," Mara said, offering hers. "Take this." "Then you'll get soaked." "I have a raincoat in my classroom." Really, take it. Lila shouldn't get drenched. Their fingers brushed as he took the umbrella, and Caleb felt the contact like electricity. Thank you, he managed. I'll bring it back Thursday. No rush, Mara said, and her smile was small and private, meant just for him. They ran through the rain, Lila laughing and splashing in puddles while Caleb tried to shield her with the borrowed umbrella. When they reached the truck, he turned back to wave and saw Mara still standing in the doorway, watching them go. In the truck, Lila was quiet for a long moment. Then, casual as anything, "You like her." "Lila? It's okay, Dad. I like her too. She's good for us. Both of us." Caleb's hands were shaking slightly as he started the engine. "It's not that simple." "Why not?" "Because she's your teacher. Because there are rules. Because—" He stopped, searching for words. "Because I promised myself I'd never risk bringing someone into our lives who could leave, who could hurt you the way your mother did." Lila was quiet, processing. Then, "Dad, what if she's not like Mom? What if she stays?" "We can't know that." "We can't know anything," Lila countered with 12-year-old wisdom. "But Ms. B shows up every day. She keeps her promises. She sees me, Dad. She sees both of us. That has to count for something." It did. That was the problem. It counted for everything. The week before Thanksgiving, Lila won the district art competition. The call came on a Monday afternoon while Caleb was reviewing blueprints for a new residential project. Mara's voice on the phone was breathless with excitement. "Caleb, it's Mara Bennett. Is this a good time?" "Of course," he said, immediately alert. "Is everything okay?" "Better than okay." Lila won. First place in her division. Her series was absolutely stunning, and the judges agreed unanimously. "She's advancing to state." Pride flooded through him, so intense it was almost painful. "That's incredible. She must be thrilled." "She's currently bouncing off the walls of my classroom," Mara laughed. "I'm calling because I wanted to see if we could celebrate. Nothing big, maybe dinner, my treat to honor our rising star artist?" Caleb's mind went blank. Dinner. The three of them, outside of school, in public. "I don't know if that's—" "Please?" Mara's voice was earnest. "She worked so hard for this, and I'd really love to celebrate with both of you. But if it's inappropriate, I understand. I can just give her the trophy tomorrow." "No," Caleb interrupted. "No, dinner sounds great. Let me check with Lila." But even as he said it, he knew they were crossing a line. Knew that sharing a meal outside school walls would shift something between them, make it harder to maintain the careful distance he'd been clinging to. Lila, predictably, was ecstatic. She insisted they go to Giovanni's, an Italian place downtown that was too expensive for regular occasions but perfect for celebrations. She spent an hour choosing an outfit, changed 3 times, and peppered Caleb with questions about whether Ms. B would bring Picasso. "It's a restaurant, sweetheart. Probably not dog-friendly." "But Picasso would want to celebrate too." Caleb found himself smiling despite his nerves. His daughter's joy was infectious, impossible to resist. They met Mara at the restaurant at 7. She dressed up, traded her usual teacher clothes for a deep green dress that brought out the warmth in her eyes, her hair loose and curled around her shoulders. When she smiled at them in the restaurant's soft lighting, Caleb felt his carefully constructed defenses crack a little more. Dinner was wonderful and torturous in equal measure. Lila was radiant, telling them about the competition, about the other entries, about the judges' comments. Mara was warm and encouraging, genuinely invested in every word. And Caleb found himself relaxing, laughing, enjoying the simple pleasure of good food and better company. They talked about art and architecture, about Seattle's changing skyline, about the best coffee shops and worst tourist traps. Mara shared stories about her students, about the ridiculous things 7th graders said, about the moments that reminded her why she loved teaching. "Last week," she said, eyes sparkling with amusement, "one of my students tried to convince me that Jackson Pollock's paintings were just accidental spills and that he could do better. So I gave him a canvas and told him to try. He spent 2 hours attempting controlled chaos and ended up with, well, an actual mess, but he gained a whole new appreciation for intentional technique." Caleb laughed. "Lesson learned through experience. That's good teaching." "Or good luck," Mara admitted. "Sometimes I have no idea what I'm doing. I just try things and hope they work." "That sounds familiar?" Caleb said. Parenting is basically the same principle. Their eyes met across the table, and something passed between them. Recognition, connection, the beginning of something that felt both dangerous and inevitable. Lila, watching them with barely concealed satisfaction, excused herself to the bathroom, leaving them alone. The silence that followed was different from the comfortable conversation they'd been sharing. It was charged, weighted with awareness. "Thank you for this," Caleb said finally. "For everything you've done for Lila. For believing in her." "I don't think you understand," Mara replied softly. "Teaching Lila, it's been a gift. She reminds me why I do this, why art matters. Still, you've gone above and beyond, the extra time, the mentoring." "I wanted to," Mara interrupted. "I want to. Being with Lila, with both of you." She stopped, seemed to catch herself. "I'm sorry. That was inappropriate." "Was it?" Caleb leaned forward slightly. "Because it didn't feel inappropriate. It felt honest." Mara's cheeks colored. "Caleb, I know we shouldn't. I know there are rules and boundaries and good reasons for all of them, but I can't stop thinking about you, Mara. And I hope, you might feel the same way." Her breath caught. "This is complicated." "I know. I could lose my job if the school thought there was any impropriety. And Lila, what if this affects her? What if we try and it doesn't work and she loses both her teacher and what?" Caleb asked gently. "What were you going to say?" Mara looked at him, eyes wide and vulnerable. "And whatever this is between us, because there is something, isn't there? I'm not imagining it." "You're not imagining it." They sat there, the truth hanging between them, terrifying and exhilarating. Caleb wanted to reach across the table, take her hand, promise her that they'd figure it out. But Lila was walking back toward them, and the moment shattered into pieces they couldn't retrieve. The rest of dinner was quieter, more careful. They avoided heavy topics, kept conversation light, but the awareness remained, a constant hum beneath every word, every glance. When they left the restaurant, the night air was crisp and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Mara walked them to their truck, hugging Lila and congratulating her one more time. "See you Thursday," she said to them both, but her eyes were on Caleb. "Thursday," he confirmed, and drove away before he could do something foolish. In the truck, Lila was suspiciously quiet. "What?" Caleb finally asked. "Nothing," she said innocently. "Just thinking." "About?" "About how you look at Ms. B like she's the most beautiful building you've ever designed." Caleb nearly swerved into the next lane. "Lila, it's true. You get the same expression, all focused and intense, and like you're seeing something amazing that no one else can see." "I don't, Dad." Lila turned to face him seriously. "I'm okay with it. If you like her, if she likes you, I'm actually more than okay. I think it would be really, really good." Caleb's throat tightened. "Sweetheart, it's not that simple." "Why not? You're both single. You like each other." "She's not going anywhere. I can tell. She's not like Mom." "How can you be sure?" "Because Mom never looked at us the way Miss B does. Like we're important. Like we matter more than anything else." Lila's voice was quiet but certain. "Miss B sees us, Dad. Both of us. People who do that don't leave." Caleb wanted to believe her, wanted to trust that Mara was different, that this could work, that breaking his rules might lead to something beautiful instead of just more pain. But trust was a muscle he'd forgotten how to use, and the risk felt enormous. Thanksgiving came and went. Caleb and Lila spent it quietly at home, cooking too much food and watching movies. But as they sat together on the couch, Caleb found his mind drifting to Mara, wondering how she was spending the holiday, whether she was alone or with family. The thought of her being alone bothered him more than it should. The following week, as November bled into December, Caleb found himself looking for excuses to visit the school, to pick Lila up early, to drop off forgotten supplies, to ask questions about the state showcase that he could have easily handled via email. Each visit was a small rebellion against his own rules, and each time he saw Mara, the distance between them felt harder to maintain. It was during one of these visits, on a gray December afternoon, that everything shifted. Caleb had stopped by to bring Lila her portfolio, She'd forgotten it that morning in her rush to catch the bus. The hallways were quiet, most students in class, and his footsteps echoed as he walked toward the art wing. Room 207 was empty except for Mara. She was standing in front of a large canvas, brush in hand, completely absorbed in her work. Caleb stood in the doorway, watching her paint. She worked with a kind of controlled passion, each brushstroke deliberate yet free. The emerging image was abstract, sweeps of blue and gold, shadows and light, something that felt like emotion made visible. "It's beautiful," Caleb said quietly. Mara jumped, nearly dropping her brush. When she turned, her expression cycled through surprise, pleasure, and something that looked like vulnerability. "You scared me," she said, pressing a hand to her heart. "I didn't hear you come in." "Sorry. I brought Lila's portfolio. She forgot it this morning." "Oh, good. She's been worried about that." Mara set down her brush, wiping her hands on a rag. "She's in the library right now, working on a research paper for English." "I can wait," Caleb said, unable to help himself. "Or I could come back." "You could stay," Mara offered, and the invitation felt like more than just words. Caleb stepped fully into the classroom, closing the door behind him out of habit. They were alone in a way they'd never been before. No Lila as a buffer, no other students or teachers nearby. "What are you painting?" he asked, moving closer to the canvas. "I'm not entirely sure yet," Mara admitted. "Sometimes I just need to create, to work things out with color and shape instead of words." "What are you working out?" She hesitated, then met his eyes directly. "What it feels like to want something you're not sure you should have." The air between them went still. "Mara, I know we shouldn't," she interrupted, her voice low and intense. "I know all the reasons this is a bad idea. My job, Lila's education, the complications. I've listed them all 1,000 times. But Caleb, I can't stop thinking about you, about what it would be like if we were just two people who met and liked each other without all the barriers and rules." Caleb felt like he was standing on the edge of a cliff. One step forward, and everything would change. One step back, and they'd both return to safety. He took the step forward. "I broke up with someone 3 years ago," Mara said suddenly, words tumbling out like a confession. "My only serious relationship. He was nice, safe, completely wrong for me. And do you know why I stayed as long as I did? Because I was terrified of being alone, of wanting more and not finding it." "And now?" Caleb asked, his heart pounding. "Now I'm more terrified of settling, of meeting someone who makes me feel alive and walking away because it's complicated." She laughed, the sound slightly broken. "You and Lila, you've become so important to me. These Tuesday and Thursday nights, our conversations. Watching her grow as an artist, it's the highlight of my week. And that terrifies me because I know I'm crossing lines I shouldn't cross." "You're not the only one crossing lines," Caleb said roughly. "I promised myself I'd never get involved with anyone connected to Lila's world, that I'd protect her from any more loss or disappointment. But then you walked into our lives and turned everything upside down." "Maybe it needed turning upside down," Mara whispered. They were so close now, close enough that Caleb could see the paint smudges on her jaw, smell the faint scent of turpentine and something floral. Close enough that one move, one choice, would shatter every careful rule he'd built. The door opened. They jumped apart like guilty teenagers, and Lila walked in, nose buried in a book. "Dad? Ms. B said you were—" "Oh!" She looked up, taking in their proximity, their expressions. A slow smile spread across her face. "Am I interrupting something?" "No," Caleb and Mara said simultaneously, too quickly. Lila's smile widened. "Sure you're not." "I brought your portfolio," Caleb said, grabbing it from where he'd set it down. "You forgot it this morning." "Thanks, Dad." Lila took it, still grinning. "So, are you guys coming to the winter showcase next week? I have 3 pieces in it." "Of course," Mara said, her voice slightly breathless. "I'll be there." Me too," Caleb added. "Wouldn't miss it." "Great!" Lila looked between them with barely concealed delight. "Maybe we could all go out after, to celebrate?" "Lila," Caleb started, a warning in his tone. "What? I'm just saying it would be nice. Ms. B is basically part of our family now, right?" Mara's cheeks flushed and Caleb felt his own face heat. "We should probably go," he said to Lila. "Let Ms. Bennett get back to her work." "Mara," she corrected softly. When it's just us, you can call me Mara. The intimacy of the statement wasn't lost on any of them. Lila's grin grew impossibly wider, and Caleb felt his resistance crumbling like sand. They said their goodbyes and left, but as Caleb and Lila walked to the truck, he could feel his daughter's eyes on him. "Don't say it," he warned. "Don't say what? That you're totally in love with Ms. B, and she's totally in love with you, and everyone can see it except apparently you two?" Lila Grace Turner. "Dad." She stopped walking, turned to face him seriously. "I'm 12, not stupid, and I'm telling you it's okay, more than okay. I want this for you, for us. What if it doesn't work out? What if we try and it falls apart and you lose your teacher? What if you don't try and you both spend the rest of your lives wondering what if, which is worse?" Caleb had no answer for that. That night, unable to sleep, he sat at his drafting table and tried to work. But instead of drawing buildings, he found himself sketching a face. Mara's face. Her smile, her eyes, the way she looked when she was lost in painting. The realization hit him with the force of a wrecking ball. He was falling in love with her, maybe had been for months, maybe from the first moment he'd seen her looking at his daughter, like she was something precious and worth protecting, and that terrified him more than anything else in his carefully controlled world. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "This is Mara. Got your number from the school directory. I hope that's okay. I just wanted to say, tonight was complicated, but I don't regret it. And I think we should talk, really talk, when you're ready." Caleb stared at the message, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. 1,000 responses ran through his mind, from sensible to reckless. Finally, he typed, "Coffee tomorrow? Just the two of us?" The response came almost immediately. "I'd like that. Very much." Caleb set down his phone and looked out the window at the December darkness. Somewhere out there, Mara was probably awake too, wondering the same thing he was, whether taking this leap would lead to flight or falling. Only one way to find out. For the first time in 5 years, Caleb Turner was ready to break his own rules and see what happened when he stopped protecting his heart and started risking it instead. The coffee shop was neutral territory. A small place called Stella's on the edge of Capitol Hill, far enough from Riverside Middle School that they wouldn't run into students or colleagues. Caleb arrived first, choosing a corner table away from the windows, suddenly aware that this was real. They were doing this. Mara walked in 10 minutes later, wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Without her teacher armor, she looked younger, more vulnerable, more like someone he could actually reach. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hi." They ordered coffee, she took hers black, he added cream, and for a moment they just sat there, the weight of unspoken things filling the space between them. "So," Mara said finally, "we should probably talk." "Probably," Caleb agreed, his lips quirking into a small smile. She took a breath, took us on. "I'm going to be honest with you, because I think that's the only way this works. If it works at all. I haven't done this in a long time, the whole feelings thing, letting myself want someone, and I'm terrified I'm going to screw it up." "Join the club," Caleb said. "I haven't dated since my divorce, haven't wanted to, made rules specifically designed to prevent this exact situation. And yet here we are. Here we are." Mara wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, staring into the dark liquid. "I need you to know, Lila comes first. Always. If this thing between us ever threatens her education, her emotional well-being, her relationship with either of us, we stop. Immediately. No questions." "Agreed," Caleb said, feeling relief wash through him. "That's non-negotiable for me, too." "Okay, good." Mara looked up, met his eyes. "So with that established, what is this? What are we doing?" Caleb considered the question seriously. "I think we're two people who've survived hard things and found each other on the other side. And I think we're trying to figure out if we're brave enough to risk the hurt that comes with caring again." "That's terrifyingly accurate." "I specialize in structure and honesty," Caleb said. "It's kind of my thing." Mara smiled and some of the tension eased. "Okay, architect, then give me the blueprint. How do we do this without destroying everything?" "Carefully," Caleb said. "We keep it private until we're sure. We make sure Lila's okay with it. Really okay, not just excited in the abstract. We follow school guidelines to the letter. and we communicate about everything. I can do that. Mara paused. And if it doesn't work? If we try and realize we're better as friends? Then we handle it like adults and make sure Lila doesn't get caught in the crossfire. But Mara? He reached across the table, let his fingers brush hers. I don't think that's going to happen. You sound sure. I am sure. I've been fighting this for months, and every time I see you, every conversation we have, I'm more certain. This isn't infatuation or convenience. This is real. Mara turned her hand over, let their palms meet. The contact was simple, chaste, but it felt like more. Like a promise, a beginning, a first step towards something neither of them could fully see yet. I've never been good at risk, she admitted quietly. I like control, planning, knowing how things will turn out. How's that working for you? She laughed, the sound bright and genuine. Terrible, actually. Maybe it's time to try something different. They talked for 2 hours about their fears, their hopes, about what they wanted this to look like. They agreed to keep things quiet until after the holidays, to let Lila process the idea without pressure, to make sure they were solid before making anything official. It was sensible, responsible, everything Caleb had promised himself he'd be. But when Mara finally stood to leave, when she squeezed his hand and smiled at him with something that looked like hope, sensible felt overrated. I'll see you at the showcase, she said. I'll be the proud dad in the front row. And after? Mara asked, a hint of mischief in her eyes. Lila suggested we celebrate. Then we celebrate, Caleb said. The three of us. The three of us, Mara echoed softly. I like the sound of that. She left, and Caleb sat there for a long time, holding his cold coffee and feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Possibility. The winter showcase was held in the school auditorium, transformed for the night into a gallery space. Student artwork lined the walls, each piece carefully lit and labeled. Parents and teachers milled around, sipping punch and admiring the creativity on display. Caleb found Lila's section easily, her 3 pieces hung together, a triptych of home. The paintings she'd worked on with Mara, now finished and framed. They were stunning, full of color and light and emotion that made his chest ache with pride. She's talented, a voice said beside him. Caleb turned to find Mara standing there, wearing a dark dress and simple jewelry, looking both professional and breathtaking. She had a good teacher, he said quietly. She had a gift, Mara corrected. I just helped her see it. They stood together, shoulders nearly touching, looking at Lila's art. Around them, the crowd buzzed with conversation and laughter, but in their small corner, everything felt still and right. Thank you, Caleb said, for all of this, for seeing her, for believing in her, for believing in both of you, Mara added softly. Their eyes met, and Caleb felt the last of his resistance crumble. This woman, this kind, passionate, beautiful woman, had walked into their broken lives and helped them become whole again, and he was done fighting it. After this, he said, let's tell her. About us. If there's going to be an us, she should know. Mara's breath caught. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Lila found them a moment later, dragging them around to see her classmates' work, chattering excitedly about technique and composition. But Caleb caught her glancing at them with knowing looks, her smile suggesting she'd already figured out exactly what was happening. After the showcase, they went to a small diner near the water. Lila ordered pancakes despite it being 8 p.m., Mara got coffee and pie, and Caleb just watched both of them with something that felt dangerously close to complete happiness. So, Lila said, drowning her pancakes in syrup. Are you guys going to tell me, or should I just keep pretending I don't know? Caleb and Mara exchanged glances. Tell you what, Mara asked carefully, that you're dating, or want to date, or whatever adults call it when they like each other and want to spend time together. Caleb felt his face heat. We've talked about it, Mara interrupted gently, about the possibility. But we wanted to make sure you were okay with it first, Lila. Your relationship with me as your teacher, with your dad, those things are important. We wouldn't do anything to jeopardize them. Lila looked between them seriously. Then, with the wisdom of someone far older than 12, I'm okay with it. I'm more than okay. You make each other happy. You make all of us happy. Why would I not want that? Because it's complicated, Caleb said. Because if things don't work out, then they don't work out, Lila interrupted. But Dad, you've been alone for 5 years because you were afraid of things not working out. At some point, you have to take the risk, both of you. Mara reached across the table, took Lila's hand. You're incredibly wise for 12. I know, Lila said matter-of-factly. So are you guys going to actually date or just keep having weird, intense moments in classrooms? Caleb choked on his water. You noticed those? Everyone noticed those, Lila said with an eye roll. You're not as subtle as you think. Mara was laughing now, her shoulders shaking, and Caleb found himself joining in. The absurdity of being called out by his 12-year-old daughter for his terrible poker face was too much. Okay, he said when he could breathe again. Okay, yes. We're dating, or we will be, officially. Finally, Lila declared. Can I be a bridesmaid? Lila! What? I'm just planning ahead. That's good strategy. They left the diner an hour later, stuffed with pancakes and pie and laughter. As they walked to the car, Lila skipped ahead, giving Caleb and Mara a moment alone. So, Mara said, her hand finding his in the darkness. We're doing this? We're doing this, Caleb confirmed, squeezing her fingers. I'm terrified. Me too. But also really, really happy. Me too, Caleb said again, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Above them, the December sky was clear and bright with stars. And for the first time in 5 years, Caleb Turner felt like he could breathe fully, love fully, live fully. All because he'd been brave enough to break his own rules. The first official date happened on a Saturday in mid-December, carefully coordinated around Lila's sleepover at her best friend Maya's house. Caleb had arranged it weeks in advance, making sure his daughter would be safe and occupied, giving him and Mara a chance to exist as just two people without the protective buffer of a 12-year-old chaperone. He picked Mara up at 7, his palms embarrassingly sweaty as he knocked on her apartment door. When she answered, wearing a wine-colored dress that fell just above her knees and her hair loose around her shoulders, he forgot how to form coherent sentences. Hi, he managed. Hi yourself, she said, her smile a mixture of nerves and delight. You clean up nice, Turner. He'd worn his one good suit, the charcoal one he saved for client presentations and the occasional wedding. You look beautiful. I changed 4 times, she admitted, grabbing her coat. Felt like a teenager getting ready for prom. I almost turned around twice on the way here, Caleb confessed, as they walked to his truck. Kept thinking of reasons to cancel. What stopped you? The memory of Lila's face when she told me I'd regret it if I chickened out. Mara laughed, the sound warming something deep in his chest. She's got you figured out. Completely. It's terrifying. They went to a small French restaurant in Ballard that Caleb had researched obsessively, reading reviews and checking menus and making sure it was romantic, but not over the top. The kind of place where they could talk without shouting over noise, where the lighting was soft and forgiving. The hostess seated them at a corner table, and for a moment they just looked at each other across the white tablecloth, the weight of actually being on a date settling over them. This is weird, right? Mara said finally. Like, good weird, but weird? Completely weird, Caleb agreed. I haven't been on a first date in almost 20 years. 15 for me. And that one was a disaster. He spent the entire dinner talking about his ex-girlfriend. Amanda spent our first date critiquing my career choice. Said architecture was impractical and I should go into finance. But you married her anyway? I was 23 and stupid, Caleb said. Thought I could convince her to love what I loved. Turns out you can't negotiate someone into seeing you. Mara reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Her loss became Lila's gain. And maybe mine, if I'm lucky. The intimacy of the statement made his breath catch. I'm the lucky one here. They ordered wine and appetizers, and gradually the strangeness faded into something easier. They talked about everything and nothing, childhood memories, favorite books, embarrassing moments, dreams they'd buried and ones they were still chasing. Mara told him about growing up in Portland with a father who worked construction and came home every night smelling like sawdust and exhaustion. He tried so hard after Mom died, she said, twirling her wine glass between her fingers. Learned to braid my hair from YouTube videos, showed up to every parent-teacher conference even though he was terrified of saying the wrong thing. He didn't understand art, but he understood that it saved me. So he bought me supplies we couldn't afford and never complained about paint on the furniture. He sounds like a good man. The best. He passed away 2 years ago. Heart attack, sudden and cruel. I still reach for my phone sometimes to call him before I remember. And Caleb squeezed her hand. I'm sorry. Me too, but I had him longer than I had my mom, and he taught me that love shows up. That it's not just words or feelings, it's action, consistency, being there even when it's hard. She met his eyes. You do that for Lila, every single day. I'm just trying not to screw her up. You're doing more than that. You're showing her what it looks like to stay, to choose her every single time. Do you know how powerful that is? Especially after her mother left? Caleb felt emotion tighten his throat. Sometimes I worry it's not enough, that I can't be both parents, can't fill both roles. You can't, Mara said gently, and that's okay. You're her father, and you're exactly what she needs. But Caleb? She paused, choosing her words carefully. Maybe it's time to stop trying to be everything and let yourself need people too. Let people help carry things. Is that what you're offering, to help carry things? If you'll let me. The waiter appeared with their entrees, breaking the moment, but the promise lingered between them. They ate and talked and laughed, and with each passing minute, Caleb felt the careful walls he'd constructed eroding further. This woman saw him, really saw him, in ways no one had since Amanda left. Maybe in ways Amanda never had. By the time dessert arrived, they'd been at the restaurant for 3 hours, and Caleb couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this relaxed, this present, this genuinely happy. I have a confession, Mara said, stealing a bite of his chocolate cake. I looked you up online before parent-teacher conferences. You did? Guilty. Wanted to see what kind of architecture you designed. Turns out you're kind of a big deal. That sustainable housing project in Fremont? Featured in Architectural Digest? Caleb felt his face heat. That was a team effort. With your name as lead architect, don't downplay it. Your work is beautiful, Caleb. You create spaces where people can build lives. That's not nothing. What about you? He countered. How many students have you inspired? How many kids have found their voice because you saw something in them? That's different. It's not. We both build things. You just use different materials. Mara smiled, soft and private. I like that. Building things with different materials. It's what we do, Caleb said. You and me. We take broken pieces and make something whole. The drive back to Mara's apartment was quiet, comfortable, full of possibility. Caleb walked her to her door, suddenly nervous in a way he hadn't been since high school. I had a really good time, Mara said, key in hand but not using it yet. Me too. Can we do it again? I'd like that. A lot. They stood there in the hallway, the air between them charged with unspoken want. Caleb wanted to kiss her, had wanted to all night, but something held him back. The memory of rules, maybe, or the fear that once he started, he wouldn't want to stop. I should go, he said, not moving. You should, Mara agreed, also not moving. Lila will be home by 10 tomorrow. Maybe you could come over for brunch? Something casual, the three of us? I'd love that. Still neither of them moved. Finally, Mara rose on her toes and pressed a soft kiss to his cheek, her lips warm against his skin. Good night, Caleb. Good night. He drove home in a daze, touching his cheek where her lips had been, feeling like a teenager and not caring at all. The next morning, Caleb was up early, cleaning the house with manic energy. He vacuumed, dusted, scrubbed the kitchen until it gleamed. He'd stopped at the grocery store on the way home from Mara's, buying ingredients for French toast and fresh fruit and the fancy coffee she'd mentioned liking. Lila arrived home at 9:30, dropped off by Maya's mom, and immediately noticed the spotless house. You cleaned, she said, accusation in her tone. You only clean like this when you're nervous. How did the date go? It went well. Just well? Lila dumped her overnight bag by the stairs, hands on hips. Dad, I need details. Did you kiss her? That's none of your business. So that's a no. Dad, what's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong with me. We're taking things slow. You've been taking things slow for months. At this rate, you'll kiss her when I graduate college. Caleb pointed toward the stairs. Go get changed. Mara's coming over for brunch in an hour. Lila's entire face lit up. She is? Dad, this is huge. We're having brunch, like a family. We're having a meal together. Don't make it weird. I'm not making it weird. You're making it weird by being all twitchy and nervous. She wasn't wrong. By the time Mara knocked on the door at 11, Caleb had changed shirts 3 times and nearly burned the French toast twice. Lila answered the door before he could, throwing her arms around Mara in a hug that made something in Caleb's chest expand painfully. Ms. B, you're here. Dad made French toast and he's being super weird about it. Thanks for that, sweetheart, Caleb called from the kitchen. Mara appeared in the doorway, wearing jeans and a soft sweater, her hair in a ponytail, looking comfortable and real, and so beautiful it hurt. Something smells amazing, she said. Dad's stress cooking, Lila stage whispered. He does that when he's nervous. Lila Grace Turner, if you don't stop narrating my emotional state, you'll what? Ground me? I'm helping. She turned to Mara with exaggerated patience. He needs help. He's emotionally constipated. I'm standing right here, Caleb protested, but Mara was laughing, and Lila looked so pleased with herself that he couldn't stay annoyed. They ate on the back porch despite the December chill, bundled in sweaters and wrapped in blankets, watching the morning fog burn off the water in the distance. Lila dominated the conversation, telling Mara about her sleepover, about the movie they'd watched, about Maya's new puppy, who was the cutest thing in the entire universe. But beneath the chatter, Caleb caught moments. Mara's hand brushing his when she reached for the coffee pot, the way their eyes met over Lila's head, small smiles that felt like secrets. This was what normal felt like, what family felt like, and it was terrifying how much he wanted it. After brunch, Lila disappeared to her room to work on homework, leaving Caleb and Mara alone to clean up. They moved around the kitchen in easy synchronization, Mara washing while Caleb dried, the domestic simplicity of it feeling profound. This is nice, Mara said quietly, being here, with both of you. It feels right, Caleb agreed. Scarily right. Scary how? He set down the towel, turned to face her. Scary, like I could get used to this, like I already am used to this, like the thought of you not being here feels wrong. Mara's breath caught. Caleb, I know it's fast. I know we just started this, but Mara, I need you to know, this isn't casual for me. You're not casual for me. You're not casual for me either, she whispered. You and Lila, you've become everything I didn't know I needed. They stood there in the quiet kitchen, the air between them heavy with emotion and unspoken want. Caleb wanted to pull her close, kiss her properly, stop being so careful. But the sound of Lila's footsteps on the stairs kept him still. I should probably go, Mara said reluctantly. Let you guys have your Sunday. Or you could stay, Caleb offered. We were going to watch a movie this afternoon. Nothing fancy, just something on the couch. You're welcome to join us. Are you sure? I don't want to intrude. You're not intruding, Lila called from the stairs, clearly eavesdropping. We want you to stay. We're watching that new animated one about the dragons. It's supposed to be really good. Mara looked at Caleb, a question in her eyes. He nodded, and something shifted in her expression. Relief, joy, belonging. Okay, she said. I'll stay. They settled on the couch, Lila between them at first, but halfway through the movie she declared she needed more popcorn and came back to sprawl on the floor instead, leaving Caleb and Mara sitting side by side. Slowly, carefully, Caleb reached for her hand. Their fingers laced together and Mara's head dipped to rest on his shoulder. It was simple, innocent, perfect. This was what he'd been protecting himself from. Not heartbreak or loss, but this, the overwhelming rightness of finding someone who fit, the terrifying vulnerability of letting someone matter. And for the first time in 5 years, the fear felt worth it. The week before Christmas, Caleb received an email from the school district. A new policy was being implemented, requiring all staff to disclose personal relationships with parents to avoid conflicts of interest. The timing felt cosmic, like the universe testing their resolve. He called Mara immediately. Did you see the email? I saw it, she said, her voice tight. We need to talk. Can you meet me after school tomorrow? They met at a coffee shop across town, the same one where they'd had their first serious conversation. But this time the atmosphere was different, heavier, weighted with potential consequences. I talked to my principal, Mara said, without preamble. Explained the situation, about us. Caleb's stomach dropped. And she said as long as Lila isn't in my class next year, and as long as we're transparent about the relationship, there's no conflict. But Caleb, I'd have to transfer. To the high school, most likely. Or to a different middle school in the district. You'd leave Riverside? I'd have to protect both of us, to make sure there's no appearance of impropriety. She twisted her coffee cup between her hands. I don't want to leave my students. I've built something there, connections and trust, but I also don't want to lose this. Lose us. Caleb reached across the table, took her shaking hands in his. What do you want to do? I want to keep teaching. I want to be with you. I want to be part of Lila's life. But Caleb, what if I transfer and we don't work out? What if I give up my classroom and then you'll still be an incredible teacher somewhere else, he interrupted gently, and we'll still be grateful you were part of our lives. But Mara, I don't think we're not going to work out. You can't know that. I can't know anything for certain, but I know how I feel. I know that every day with you feels like coming home. I know that Lila lights up when you're around. I know that I wake up thinking about you and fall asleep wishing you were there. That's as close to certain as I can get. Tears welled in Mara's eyes. I'm scared. Me too. But maybe scared together is better than safe alone. She laughed, the sound watery but genuine. You're supposed to be the practical one, the architect with the plans and the rules. Yeah, well, someone broke all my rules. I'm improvising now. Mara squeezed his hands. Okay, I'll submit the transfer request after winter break. Give us the holidays to make sure, and then we move forward. Together. Together, Caleb echoed, and sealed it with a kiss across the coffee shop table, not caring who saw. Christmas Eve found them at Caleb's house, the three of them decorating the tree together. Mara had brought ornaments from her apartment, delicate glass ones her mother had collected, each one a memory. Lila handled them like treasures, asking about each one's story, hanging them carefully on the branches. This one, Mara said, holding up a small blue bird. My mom bought the year she was diagnosed. She said it reminded her to fly, even when everything felt heavy. It's beautiful, Lila said softly. She had good taste. She did. Mara hung it on the tree, near the top where it would catch the light. She would have loved you, Lila. She always wanted me to be a teacher, to work with young people. Said I had a gift for seeing potential. You do, Lila said simply. You saw mine. Caleb watched them from the doorway, his heart so full it ached. This was what he'd been afraid of. Not the pain of potential loss, but the overwhelming intensity of love found. The way caring this much could crack you open and leave you vulnerable to every possible hurt. But it was also the only thing that made you whole. They watched Christmas movies and ate cookies and laughed until their sides hurt. When Lila finally fell asleep on the couch, buried under blankets with her sketch pad still clutched in one hand, Caleb and Mara sat together in the soft glow of the Christmas tree lights. Thank you, Mara whispered, for letting me be part of this, part of your family. You are our family, Caleb said. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Not someday, not potentially. Now, you're already ours, Mara. She turned to face him, eyes bright with unshed tears. I love you. I know it's soon. I know we're supposed to take things slow, but I can't not say it anymore. I love you, Caleb. I love both of you. The words hung between them, brave and terrifying and absolutely true. I love you too, Caleb said, his voice rough with emotion. I think I have since the first time I saw you with Lila, seeing her like she mattered, like she was extraordinary. She is extraordinary. You both are. Caleb cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing away the tears that had started to fall. I'm going to kiss you now, really kiss you, and I need you to know, this isn't me being impulsive or reckless. This is me choosing you, choosing us, choosing to be brave enough to risk the hurt because you're worth it. I'm choosing you too, Mara breathed. Their lips met in the soft glow of the Christmas tree, gentle at first and then deeper, 5 months of careful restraint finally breaking. It was a first kiss that felt like a promise, like the beginning of everything they'd been too afraid to reach for. When they finally pulled apart, Lila's voice came from the couch, sleepy but amused. Finally, took you long enough. You're supposed to be asleep, Caleb said, not bothering to hide his smile. I was. You guys woke me up with all your emotional declarations. She sat up, rubbing her eyes. But I approve, just so you know. In case that matters. It matters, Mara said softly. It matters more than anything. Good. Now can we please have Christmas breakfast? I'm starving. They laughed, the three of them, and Caleb thought about all the Christmases before this one. The hollow ones after Amanda left, where he'd tried so hard to make things festive and normal while his daughter smiled through her pain. The years of just the two of them, healing slowly, learning to be okay with a family of two. This was different. This was whole. This was the family he'd stopped believing was possible. The new year arrived with rain and wind, typical Seattle weather that matched Caleb's mood, turbulent, shifting, full of potential energy. Mara had submitted her transfer request, and they were waiting to hear back. In the meantime, they were navigating the strange territory of being together, but keeping it quiet, of stolen moments and careful distance at school. It was harder than Caleb had anticipated. Every time he picked Lila up from art club and saw Mara, he wanted to pull her close, kiss her hello, act like the couple they were in private. But school walls meant different rules, and they both knew the cost of breaking them. This is torture, Mara said one evening, walking them to the parking lot. They stood by Caleb's truck, a careful 3 feet between them, when all he wanted was to erase the distance entirely. Just a few more weeks, Caleb said. Once the transfer goes through, I know, but I hate this. Hate pretending you're just Lila's dad and I'm just her teacher when you're so much more than that. Soon, he promised. Soon we won't have to pretend. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The email arrived on a Tuesday in mid-January. Mara's transfer had been approved, effective immediately after winter break. She'd be moving to Lincoln High School, teaching freshmen and sophomores, starting a new chapter. She should have been relieved. Instead, she showed up at Caleb's door that night, tears streaming down her face. Hey, what's wrong? He pulled her inside, alarm coursing through him. What happened? I got the transfer, she said, voice breaking. But Caleb, leaving Riverside, leaving my classroom, my students, the program I built, it's harder than I thought. I know it's the right choice, I know it's what we need to do, but it still feels like I'm losing something important. Caleb held her while she cried, understanding the grief of necessary sacrifice. Sometimes doing the right thing still hurt. Sometimes choosing love meant giving up other things you loved too. I'm sorry, he murmured into her hair. I'm so sorry you have to make this choice. I'd make it again, she said fiercely, pulling back to look at him. I'd make it 1,000 times. But I'm allowed to be sad about what I'm leaving behind. You're allowed to feel everything you're feeling. And Mara, those students, that program, you're not losing them. You're just teaching them differently now. You showed them what good teaching looks like. That doesn't disappear just because you're in a different building. She nodded, wiping her eyes. You're right. I know you're right. Where's Lila? She asked, suddenly looking around. Upstairs doing homework. She doesn't know you're here yet. Can I tell her? About the transfer? I want her to hear it from me. They went upstairs together, finding Lila sprawled on her bed with her math textbook, looking miserable. Ms. B. She sat up, delight replacing frustration. Did you come to save me from algebra? Not tonight, sweetheart. Mara sat on the edge of the bed. But I did come to tell you something. I'm transferring to Lincoln High. After this semester, I won't be your teacher anymore. Lila's face crumpled. What? Why? Because of your dad and me. Because we're together now, and the school needs me to transfer to avoid any conflicts. It's the right thing to do, Lila, but I need you to know I'm not leaving you. I'm just changing buildings. But you won't be at Riverside anymore. You won't be there if I need you. I'll always be here if you need me, Mara said firmly. Just not in room 207. But Lila, you can call me, text me, see me outside of school anytime you want. I'm not disappearing. I'm just becoming something different. Not your teacher, something more like family. Lila looked between them, processing. Like a stepmom? Caleb's breath caught. They hadn't talked about that, about where this was ultimately heading. But looking at Mara, seeing the love and hope in her eyes, he knew the answer. Maybe, Mara said carefully. Someday, if that's something you'd want. I'd want that, Lila said softly. I'd want that a lot. The three of them sat there in Lila's room, surrounded by art supplies and textbooks and the comfortable chaos of a 12-year-old's life, and Caleb felt the last piece of his carefully constructed world shift into place. This was his family now, complicated, unconventional, built from broken pieces and brave choices. And it was perfect. Mara's last day at Riverside Middle School was bittersweet. Her students threw her a surprise party, complete with a banner that read, "We'll miss you, Ms. B," and a cake decorated with paint palettes. She cried, they cried, and Caleb watched from the doorway as she said goodbye to the classroom that had meant everything. That night, they had dinner at his house, just the three of them, celebrating endings and beginnings. Lila had made a card, covered in drawings and heartfelt words about what Mara meant to her. Caleb had cooked Mara's favorite meal, the recipe she'd mentioned loving as a child. "Thank you," Mara said, looking at both of them with red-rimmed eyes, "for making this less painful, for reminding me what I'm gaining, not just what I'm losing." "You're gaining us," Lila said simply. "Forever. That's a pretty good trade." "The best trade," Mara agreed. "The absolute best." After dinner, after Lila had gone to bed, Caleb and Mara sat on the porch swing, wrapped in blankets against the January cold. The sky was clear for once, stars visible despite the city lights. "I'm proud of you," Caleb said, "for doing the hard thing, for choosing us even when it cost you." "I'd choose us again," Mara said, "every single time." "I know, but it's still brave." They sat in comfortable silence, the swing creaking softly beneath them, and Caleb thought about all the ways life surprised you, all the ways love showed up when you least expected it, in the form of a paint-stained art teacher with a big heart and a gift for seeing potential. He'd spent 5 years protecting himself and Lila from exactly this, from caring too much, from risking too deeply, from opening their carefully reconstructed lives to the possibility of more loss. But sitting here with Mara, feeling her warmth against his side, listening to her breathe in the quiet night, Caleb realized something profound. The only thing more painful than risking love was never having it at all. February arrived with the kind of cold that settled into your bones and refused to leave. Mara had been at Lincoln High for 3 weeks, adjusting to new hallways and older students and a different rhythm entirely. She came home exhausted most nights, collapsing on Caleb's couch with lesson plans spread across the coffee table, Picasso's head in her lap. Home. That's what she'd started calling his house without either of them really discussing it. She had a drawer in his dresser now, a toothbrush in the bathroom, a favorite mug in the kitchen cabinet. The transition had been so gradual that Caleb couldn't pinpoint when it happened, only that one day he'd looked around and realized she was everywhere, woven into the fabric of their daily lives so completely that her absence would leave visible holes. It should have terrified him. Instead, it felt like relief. But not everything was easy. Lila was struggling with the loss of Mara as her teacher, even though she saw her constantly outside of school. Her new art teacher, Mr. Phillips, was competent but uninspired, going through motions without passion. Lila came home complaining almost daily. "He doesn't get it," she said one evening, throwing her backpack down with more force than necessary. "He just assigns projects from a textbook and doesn't even look at our work. Not really. Not the way Ms. B did." "Maybe give him a chance," Caleb suggested, though his heart wasn't in it. He'd seen Mara's teaching, knew what real engagement looked like. "He might surprise you." "He won't. He's already told us that art is just an elective, that we shouldn't stress about it too much. Can you imagine Ms. B ever saying that?" No, Caleb couldn't. Mara treated art like it was life itself, essential and sacred and worth fighting for. Mara, overhearing from the kitchen where she was cooking dinner, appeared in the doorway. "Lila, I know it's hard. I know Mr. Phillips isn't what you're used to, but you can't let someone else's lack of passion diminish yours. Keep creating. Keep pushing yourself. Do it for you, not for a grade." "But it's not the same," Lila said, and her voice cracked. "You made it fun. You made me feel like what I created mattered." "It does matter," Mara said fiercely, crossing the room to pull Lila into a hug. "Every single piece you create matters because it comes from you." "And Lila, I'm still here. You can still show me your work, still ask for feedback, still use art to process whatever you're feeling. That hasn't changed. Lila clung to her, and Caleb watched the two most important people in his life hold each other, his chest tight with emotion. This was what Mara had sacrificed, the daily connection with students like Lila, the classroom she'd built from nothing. And she'd done it for him, for them, for the possibility of something permanent. The weight of that sacrifice sat heavy on his shoulders. Later that night, after Lila had gone to bed, Caleb found Mara on the back porch, wrapped in a blanket and staring at the dark water in the distance. "You okay?" he asked, settling beside her. "Just thinking about Lila, about how hard this transition has been for her. She'll adjust. She's resilient. I know. But I hate that she has to. I hate that choosing us meant she lost something important too." Caleb pulled her closer. "She didn't lose you. You're more present in her life now than when you were just her teacher." "But it's different. The classroom connection, that was ours, mine and hers. Now I'm her dad's girlfriend who used to be her teacher. It's complicated." Everything worth having is complicated," Caleb said. "You taught me that." Mara leaned her head on his shoulder. "Some days I wonder if I did the right thing. If maybe I should have just stayed at Riverside and kept things professional between us." The words hit Caleb like ice water. "Do you regret this?" "Us?" "No," she said immediately, turning to face him. "No, Caleb, that's not what I meant. I don't regret us for a second. Sometimes I wonder if I could have found a way to have both. The classroom and you." "You couldn't. We both know that." "I know. Doesn't stop me from wishing the rules were different." They sat in silence for a moment, the cold seeping through their layers. Then Caleb said quietly, "I want to tell you something I've never told anyone, not even Amanda." Mara waited, her hand finding his in the darkness. "After Amanda left, after I saw what it did to Lila, I made myself a promise. I promised I'd never put my own happiness ahead of hers, that I'd sacrifice anything, career, relationships, my own life, to make sure she was okay. And for 5 years, that promise felt righteous, like I was being a good father. You are a good father, maybe, but I was also being a coward, because that promise wasn't just about protecting Lila. It was about protecting me. If I never let anyone else in, if I never risked caring again, then I'd never have to feel the kind of devastation Amanda left behind." He turned to look at Mara directly. "But then you came along and broke every single defense I'd built. And you know what scared me most? Not that you might leave, that I might push you away because I was too afraid to be vulnerable." "Caleb, let me finish. You sacrificed your classroom for us. The least I can do is be honest about what you mean to me. You're not just Lila's former teacher or my girlfriend. You're the person who reminded me that life is meant to be lived, not just survived. That opening yourself to potential pain is the only way to access real joy. And I love you for that. I love you so much it terrifies me." Mara's eyes were bright with tears. "I love you too. And I need you to know, leaving Riverside was hard, but staying there while being with you would have been impossible. I didn't sacrifice the classroom for you, Caleb. I chose you. There's the difference." "Is there?" "Yes. Sacrifice implies loss. Choice implies agency. I chose this life with you and Lila over that classroom because this is where I want to be, where I'm supposed to be." Caleb kissed her then, slow and deep, pouring 5 years of loneliness and fear and desperate hope into the connection. When they finally pulled apart, both breathless, Mara whispered against his lips, "Take me inside. It's freezing out here." They went inside to the warmth, to the house that had become theirs. And for the first time since Amanda left, Caleb let himself imagine a future that included someone besides just him and Lila. A future where love was possible again. The State Art Showcase loomed large in March, consuming Lila's every waking moment. She worked obsessively on her portfolio, spending hours in her room sketching and painting, emerging only for meals and the occasional reminder that sleep was necessary. Mara helped where she could, offering feedback and encouragement, but she was careful not to overstep. This was Lila's project, her vision, and it needed to come from her authentic voice. "She's amazing," Mara said one evening, looking at the pieces Lila had completed. "Caleb, these aren't good for a 7th grader. These are good, period. She could compete with students twice her age. Think she has a real shot at placing?" I think she has a shot at winning. The showcase was held in Olympia, a 2-hour drive from Seattle. Caleb had booked a hotel room for the weekend, planning to make it a mini vacation. At the last minute, he'd asked Mara to come with them. "Are you sure?" she'd asked, uncertain. "This is a big moment for Lila. Maybe it should just be the two of you." "She wants you there," Caleb had said. "We both do. Please!" So the three of them piled into Caleb's truck on a Friday afternoon in mid-March, Lila's portfolio carefully secured in the back, nervous energy crackling through the cab. "What if my work isn't good enough?" Lila asked for the 100th time. "What if the judges think it's juvenile or derivative or—" "It's none of those things," Mara interrupted gently from the passenger seat. "Your work is honest, emotional, technically skilled, and uniquely yours. That's all any artist can offer. But what if you—" "Lila," Caleb said firmly, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Win or lose, we're proud of you. The showcase is just validation. Your worth as an artist doesn't depend on their opinion." "Your dad's right," Mara added. "Though for the record, I think you're going to blow them away." The showcase itself was overwhelming. Hundreds of students from across Washington state, their work displayed in a massive convention center, judges circulating with clipboards and serious expressions. Lila's portfolio was set up in the 7th grade division, 5 pieces that told a cohesive story about home, loss, healing, and hope. Caleb stood back and looked at them with fresh eyes. The early sketches in black and white showing their house empty and shadowed. The middle pieces where color began creeping in, tentative golds and soft blues. And the final painting, vibrant and alive, showing their home with 3 figures visible through the windows instead of 2. He felt his throat tighten. His daughter had documented their entire journey without him realizing it. The grief, the slow healing, the opening to new love. It was all there, rendered in charcoal and paint and incredible talent. "She put me in the last painting," Mara whispered beside him, her voice choked with emotion. "That's me in the window, the 3 of us." "She sees us as a family," Caleb said. "Has for a while now. I see us that way too." They spent the day wandering the showcase, admiring other students' work, watching Lila network with young artists from across the state. She was in her element, talking about technique and inspiration with the kind of confidence that came from finally finding your people. The award ceremony was that evening. Caleb found himself more nervous than Lila, his leg bouncing anxiously as they waited for the 7th grade division to be announced. Mara's hand found his, squeezing tight. 3rd place was announced. Not Lila. 2nd place, still not her. Caleb's heart sank. She'd been so hopeful, worked so hard. And 1st place in the 7th grade division, for her powerful exploration of home and family through mixed media, goes to Lila Turner. The room erupted in applause. Lila sat frozen for a moment, shock written across her face, before Caleb practically pushed her out of her seat. She stumbled to the stage, accepted her trophy and ribbon, and when the photographer asked her to pose with her portfolio, her smile could have powered the entire city. Afterward, surrounded by congratulations and celebration, Lila found Caleb and Mara in the crowd. She threw her arms around both of them, trophy clutched in one hand. "I won! I actually won!" "You deserved it," Mara said, tears streaming down her face. "Every bit of it." "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," Caleb managed, his own voice rough with emotion. But Lila pulled back, looking at them seriously. "I couldn't have done this without you. Either of you. Dad, you gave me a safe place to heal, and Mara, you taught me how to turn pain into art. This win belongs to all of us." They stood there, the 3 of them holding each other while cameras flashed and other families celebrated around them. And Caleb thought about how far they'd come, how broken they'd been, and how beautifully they'd been put back together. That night, back at the hotel, Lila crashed hard, exhausted from adrenaline and excitement. She fell asleep almost immediately, trophy on the nightstand beside her bed, ribbon draped over the lamp. Caleb and Mara stepped out onto the small balcony attached to their adjoining rooms, looking out at the unfamiliar city lights. "Thank you for being here," Caleb said quietly. "Today was perfect because you were part of it. I wouldn't have missed it for anything." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Caleb said, "I've been thinking about something, about what comes next." "Next?" "For us. You're at my house every night anyway. Half your stuff is already there. Picasso has claimed the living room couch as his own. At what point do we just admit you've moved in? Mara turned to face him, eyes wide. Are you asking me to move in? Officially? I'm saying you already have, unofficially. I'm asking if you want to make it real. Get rid of your apartment, consolidate our lives. Stop pretending we're taking things slow when we both know this is it for us. This is it for us, Mara repeated softly, testing the words. You really believe that? I know it. Have known it for months. Maybe since that first parent-teacher conference when you saw Lila for who she really was. I'm not afraid anymore, Mara. Not of this, not of us. Mara's breath caught. I want to move in. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep beside you every night. I want to be there for Lila's bad days and good days and everything in between. I want to build a life with you, Caleb, a real one. Then let's do it. Let's stop waiting for the perfect time and just choose each other, completely. They kissed under the unfamiliar stars, and Caleb felt the last piece of his old life slip away. The man who'd built walls and made rules and protected himself from feeling too much, that man was gone. In his place was someone braver, someone willing to risk everything for the chance at real happiness. The drive back to Seattle the next day was filled with excited chatter from Lila and quiet planning from Caleb and Mara. They'd tell Lila about the move-in tonight, make it official, start building their life together without hesitation or fear. But fate, as it so often did, had one more test waiting for them. The email came through on Caleb's phone while they were stopped for gas. He read it once, then twice, his blood turning to ice. What's wrong? Mara asked, noticing his expression. Caleb handed her the phone wordlessly. It was from Amanda's lawyer. She wanted to meet, wanted to discuss custody arrangements. After 5 years of silence, she'd decided she wanted to be part of Lila's life again. Mara's face went pale. When did she send this? Yesterday, while we were at the showcase. What are you going to do? Caleb looked back at the truck, where Lila was visible through the window, talking animatedly on the phone with Maya, completely unaware that her world was about to shift again. I don't know, he admitted. But I need to protect her. That's all that matters. We'll protect her, Mara said firmly. Together. Whatever this is, whatever Amanda wants, we'll face it together. The word we had never sounded more precious or more terrifying, because suddenly this wasn't just about Caleb and his daughter anymore. It was about the family they'd built, the life they were creating, and whether Amanda's reappearance would shatter it all before it fully formed. They drove the rest of the way home in heavy silence, Lila's excitement about her win fading as she picked up on the tension. By the time they pulled into the driveway, she was quiet, watching them with worried eyes. Something's wrong, she said. It wasn't a question. Caleb exchanged glances with Mara, then made a decision. No more secrets, no more protecting Lila from hard truths. She was strong enough to handle reality. Your mom's lawyer contacted me, he said, helping her out of the truck. She wants to meet. To talk about you. Lila's face went carefully blank, the expression she always wore when trying not to feel too much. Why now? It's been 5 years. I don't know, sweetheart, but I promise you, nothing happens without your input. You get a say in this, a big say. I don't want to see her, Lila said, her voice small and young in a way it hadn't been in years. I don't want her back in our lives. Mara stepped forward, crouching so she was eye level with Lila. Then we'll make sure that doesn't happen. But Lila, your dad needs to at least meet with the lawyer, find out what she wants. That doesn't mean anything changes. It just means we have information. You'll come too? Lila asked, looking between them. Both of you? To the meeting? If you want us there, Caleb said. Absolutely. I want you there, Lila said firmly. Both of you. We're a family now. We handle things together. The word hung in the air between them, precious and defining. Family, not in some distant future, but now. Despite the complications and the fear and the unknown threat of Amanda's return. That night, after Lila had gone to bed clutching her trophy like a talisman, Caleb and Mara sat at the kitchen table, the lawyer's email open on his laptop. She has rights, Mara said quietly. As Lila's mother. Legally, if she wants visitation. She gave up her rights, Caleb interrupted harshly. She walked away, She doesn't get to stroll back in whenever it's convenient. I know, but courts don't always see it that way. And Caleb, if she fights this, then we fight back. We show them 5 years of me being the only parent who showed up, 5 years of Lila thriving without Amanda in her life. Mara was quiet for a moment, then carefully. What if Amanda's changed? What if she genuinely wants to make amends? You're defending her? Caleb couldn't keep the shock from his voice. No, I'm trying to be realistic. People do change. People do regret their mistakes. And as much as I want to protect Lila from more hurt, I also know that completely cutting a parent out, that has its own consequences. You're speaking from experience. My dad wasn't perfect. He made mistakes, hurt my feelings, let me down sometimes. But he was there. And when my mom died, having him, even an imperfect him, made all the difference. She reached across the table, took Caleb's hand. I'm not saying let Amanda back in. I'm saying we need to at least understand what she wants before we build walls. Caleb wanted to argue, wanted to let his anger and protective instincts take over. But Mara was right. Operating from fear and rage wouldn't protect Lila. Information would. Strategy would. Okay, he said finally. I'll meet with the lawyer, find out what Amanda wants. But Mara, if she tries to hurt Lila again, if she's just doing this out of guilt or some midlife crisis, then we protect our daughter, Mara said firmly, however we need to. Our daughter. The word sent warmth through Caleb's chest despite the fear. Mara had claimed Lila as hers, claimed their makeshift family as real and worth fighting for. I love you, he said, for being here, for not running when things got complicated. I'm not going anywhere, Mara said. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Amanda coming back, custody battles, whatever else life throws at us, I'm here completely. Forever. Forever, Caleb echoed, and meant it with everything he had. The meeting with Amanda's lawyer was scheduled for the following Tuesday. Caleb took the afternoon off work, his stomach in knots as he dressed in his most professional suit. Mara had wanted to come, but they'd decided it was better if she didn't, at least not for this first meeting. If Amanda was going to be defensive or hostile, having Caleb's girlfriend there might make things worse. The lawyer's office was downtown, all glass and steel and expensive furniture. Caleb was shown into a conference room where a woman in her 40s sat waiting, perfectly groomed and professionally detached. Mr. Turner, I'm Patricia Morrison. Thank you for coming. Let's skip the pleasantries, Caleb said, taking a seat across from her. What does Amanda want? Patricia didn't flinch at his tone. My client would like to establish a relationship with her daughter. She understands she made a grave error in leaving, and she'd like the opportunity to make amends. After 5 years of silence, no birthday cards, no phone calls, no child support, and now suddenly she wants to be a mother? People make mistakes, Mr. Turner. People grow and change. My client has been in therapy, working through her issues, and she feels ready now to be the parent she should have been. That's very nice for her. But this isn't about what she wants. It's about what's best for Lila. And dragging her back into contact with someone who abandoned her is not what's best. Patricia opened a folder, pulling out documents. My client is prepared to petition for joint custody if necessary, but she'd prefer to handle this amicably. Supervised visitation to start, building to a more substantial relationship over time. Caleb felt rage building in his chest. You've got to be kidding me. She walked out. She chose to leave. She doesn't get to force her way back in. Actually, Mr. Turner, she does. Parental rights aren't dissolved simply because a parent makes poor choices. Unless you can prove she's unfit or dangerous, she abandoned her child. That's not poor choices, that's cruelty. Patricia's expression softened slightly. I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. But fighting this in court will be expensive, stressful, and ultimately may not result in the outcome you want. My client is willing to be reasonable, to move slowly, to prioritize Lila's emotional well-being. If she actually cared about Lila's emotional well-being, she wouldn't be doing this at all. Perhaps. Or perhaps she's finally ready to be the mother Lila deserves. Either way, Mr. Turner, this is happening. The question is whether it happens with your cooperation or over your objection. Caleb stared at the lawyer at the documents spread across the table, and felt his carefully reconstructed world beginning to crack. He'd thought the hard part was over, thought they'd survived the worst of it, but apparently healing wasn't linear, and the past had a way of reaching forward when you least expected it. "I need time," he said finally. "To talk to Lila, to prepare her." Of course. My client suggests an initial meeting in 2 weeks, somewhere neutral, with you present, just to see each other, to start the conversation. And if Lila says no, then we proceed through the courts. But I don't think anyone wants that, Mr. Turner. Least of all, your daughter. Caleb left the office feeling like he'd been hollowed out. He sat in his truck in the parking garage for 20 minutes, trying to process, before finally pulling out his phone and calling Mara. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. "She wants visitation, starting in 2 weeks, supervised, with me present, but Mara, she's serious about this. If we fight it, she'll take us to court." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, "Come home. We'll figure this out together." Home. She'd called his house home as naturally as breathing. Despite everything falling apart, that one word anchored him. "I'm on my way." He found Mara and Lila in the kitchen when he arrived, attempting to make dinner together. They both looked up when he walked in, hope and fear warring on their faces. "Dad?" Lila asked. "What did they say?" Caleb pulled out a chair, suddenly exhausted. "Your mom wants to see you. She wants to try to rebuild a relationship." Lila's face went pale. "I don't want to see her." "I know, sweetheart, but legally." "I don't care about legally." Lila's voice rose, panic edging in. "She left us. She doesn't get to just come back." Mara moved to Lila's side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Breathe, Lila, just breathe. Nothing's decided yet. Your mom's lawyer says if we refuse, they'll go to court, fight for custody." "She can't take me away from you," Lila said, tears starting to fall. "Dad, please, don't let her take me away." "That's not going to happen," Caleb said firmly, crossing to pull his daughter into his arms. "I promise you, Lila, you're staying right here, but we might have to let her visit. Might have to give her a chance to prove she's changed." "What if I don't want to give her that chance?" "Then we fight," Mara said quietly. "We get a lawyer. We document every single day your dad showed up and she didn't. We show the court that you're thriving, that disrupting your life now would cause harm." "But Lila, fighting means a long legal battle. It means judges and courtrooms and people asking you questions about your mom. It means dragging everything out into the open." Lila pulled back, wiping her eyes. "What do you think I should do?" The question was directed at both of them, but her eyes were on Mara. Mara took a breath. "I think you should meet her. Once. Just to see. Because 5 years is a long time, and people do change. Maybe she's different now. Maybe she's genuinely sorry and wants to make amends. And if she is, maybe having both parents, even if one was absent for a while, could be good for you." "And if she hasn't changed?" Lila asked. "Then at least you'll know, and we'll have tried the peaceful option before we go to war." Caleb looked at Mara, grateful for her wisdom, even as his protective instincts screamed to refuse any contact. But she was right. They needed to try the reasonable approach first. "It's your choice, Lila," he said. Whatever you decide, we support you. If you want to meet her, I'll be right there with you. If you don't, we'll fight this in court. You're old enough to have a say in your own life." Lila was quiet for a long time, thinking. Then, voice small but steady. "One meeting. That's it. And if she tries to guilt me or make excuses, I'm done." "That's fair," Caleb said. "That's more than fair." That night, after Lila had cried herself to sleep and Mara had moved her belongings from her apartment into their bedroom, they lay in the darkness, holding each other. "I'm scared," Caleb admitted. "Scared she'll hurt Lila again. Scared this will undo all the healing we've done." "Me too," Mara whispered. "But Caleb, we're stronger now, all three of us. Whatever Amanda brings, we can handle it." "When did you become the brave one?" "When I fell in love with you. When I realized running from hard things was easier than fighting for what matters. You taught me that." Caleb pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "We're really doing this. Building a life together. Even with all the complications. Especially with the complications," Mara corrected. "Because that's what real life is. Not perfect moments in perfect circumstances, but choosing each other anyway. Every single day." Outside, Seattle rain began to fall, the sound familiar and soothing against the windows. And despite the fear, despite the uncertainty of what Amanda's return would bring, Caleb felt something unexpected. Hope. They'd survived worse. They'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. And whatever came next, they'd face it together. Him, Mara, and the daughter they both loved fiercely enough to fight the world for. That was family. Not biology or law or perfect circumstances. Just showing up over and over again until love became unbreakable. The 2 weeks before the meeting crawled by with agonizing slowness. Lila threw herself into her art with renewed intensity, spending hours in her room creating pieces that were darker than usual, full of sharp angles and stormy colors. Caleb recognized it for what it was, her way of processing fear, of externalizing emotions too big to contain. Mara gave her space but stayed close, always available when Lila needed to talk or simply needed someone to sit with her in silence. The three of them moved through their days with a kind of careful tenderness, as if they were all made of glass and one wrong word might shatter everything. On the Thursday before the scheduled meeting, Caleb came home from work to find Mara sitting on the porch steps, looking unusually serious. "What's wrong?" he asked, immediately on alert. "Nothing's wrong, but I need to talk to you about something." She patted the space beside her, and he sat, feeling tension coil in his shoulders. "I've been thinking about the meeting with Amanda, about my role in all of this." "Your role is whatever you want it to be." "That's just it, though. I don't know what I want it to be. Part of me wants to be there, to support you and Lila, but another part thinks maybe I should stay away. Give Amanda space to rebuild a relationship without feeling threatened by my presence." Caleb felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You think she'd feel threatened by you?" "I think she's Lila's mother, and I'm the woman who's essentially replaced her in her daughter's life. How could she not feel threatened?" Mara turned to look at him directly. "And Caleb, what if my being there makes things worse? What if Amanda sees me as the reason she lost her family? You had nothing to do with that. She left 2 years before we even met you." "I know that, you know that. But people aren't always rational about these things, especially when they're facing their own failures." Caleb reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. "What are you saying? That you don't want to be part of this?" "I'm saying I'll do whatever's best for Lila. If that means stepping back, giving Amanda room to be a mother without competition, then that's what I'll do." "Lila would be devastated if you weren't there. Would she? Or would she feel relief at not having to navigate between the woman who gave birth to her and the woman who's been acting as her mother for the past year?" The question hung heavy between them. Caleb wanted to deny it, to insist that Lila needed Mara there, but the truth was more complicated. His daughter was already dealing with enough emotional complexity without adding the tension of two maternal figures in the same room. "I don't want you to feel like you have to hide," he said finally. "You're part of this family. You have every right to be there." "Rights aren't the same as what's wise." Mara squeezed his hand. "I'm not going anywhere, Caleb. I'm just trying to think about what serves Lila best. And maybe, for this first meeting, what she needs is simplicity. Her dad and her mom working through their stuff without me as a complicating factor." "You're not a complicating factor." "To Lila, no. But to Amanda, I absolutely am." They sat in silence for a moment, watching the late afternoon light paint the sky in shades of amber and rose. Then Caleb said quietly, "When did you become so wise about all this?" "When I realized that loving you and Lila means sometimes putting my own feelings aside. Sometimes love looks like stepping back, not pushing forward." "I love you," he said, the words feeling inadequate for the depth of emotion he felt. "I love you too, which is why I'm going to stay home during the meeting. Let you and Lila handle this without me hovering in the background." Caleb pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo and paint, and home. "What did I do to deserve you?" "You showed up," Mara said simply, "every single day, for 5 years. That's what you did." That night at dinner, they broached the subject with Lila. She listened quietly as Mara explained her reasoning, her face carefully neutral. "So you're saying you don't want to come?" Lila asked when Mara finished. "I'm saying I think it might be easier for you if I don't. Give you space to talk to your mom without worrying about my feelings." Lila was quiet for a long moment, pushing food around her plate. Then, voice small, "What if I need you there?" "Then I'll be there. Mara said immediately. This is your call, Lila. Not mine, not your dad's. Yours. But you think it would be better if you stayed home. I think it might be less complicated, but that doesn't mean it's what you need. Lila looked between them, clearly torn. Can I think about it? Of course, sweetheart, Caleb said. You've got 2 more days. Whatever you decide, we'll support it. Later that night, Caleb found Lila in her room, staring at a blank canvas with a paintbrush in her hand, but no paint on the bristles. Penny for your thoughts? He asked from the doorway. I think Mara should stay home, Lila said without looking at him. Not because I don't want her there, but because she's right. Mom seeing her, it'll just make everything harder. You sure about that? No, but I'm not sure about anything right now. She finally looked up at him, and her eyes were older than they should be. Dad, what if Mom wants me to choose between you and her, between the life I have now and the one she thinks we should have? Caleb crossed the room, sat on the edge of her bed. Then you tell her that's not a choice anyone should ask you to make. You're allowed to have both parents in your life, Lila, allowed to set boundaries and expectations. You're not responsible for managing her feelings or making her feel better about the choices she made. Mara told you to say that, didn't she? She might have mentioned something similar, Caleb admitted with a small smile. But it's true. You don't owe your mother forgiveness or a relationship just because she gave birth to you. If she wants back in your life, she has to earn it, and that's going to take time and consistent effort. What if she doesn't? What if she shows up once and then disappears again? Then we deal with it together. But Lila, living in fear of what might happen, that's no way to live. Sometimes you have to take the risk and see what unfolds. Is that what you did with Mara? Took the risk? Eventually, after fighting it for way too long, but yes. And look how that turned out. Lila smiled for the first time in days. Pretty good, I guess. She makes really good pancakes. She does. And she loves you so much. You know that, right? I know. Which is why I think she should stay home during the meeting. Because if Mom says something mean about her, I'll lose it, and then the whole thing will be a disaster. Caleb felt his chest tighten. His 12-year-old daughter, already learning the painful art of protecting the people she loved. When did you get so grown up? When I had to. When Mom left and it was just us. You can't stay a kid forever when your world falls apart. You shouldn't have had to grow up so fast. Maybe not. But I did. And Dad? I'm okay. Not perfect, not undamaged, but okay. You made sure of that. You and Mara. They sat together in the quiet of her room, surrounded by art supplies and half-finished sketches and the comfortable chaos of a creative mind at work. And Caleb thought about all the ways love showed up, in the staying, in the stepping back, in the hard conversations and harder choices. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at a neutral coffee shop downtown. Caleb had suggested somewhere public, somewhere Lila would feel safe and could leave if she needed to. The morning of, he woke early to find Mara already up, making breakfast with nervous energy. I know I said I'd stay home, she said without preamble, but I'm going to be a wreck just waiting here. So I'm going to take Picasso to the dog park. Wear both of us out. Text me when it's over. The second we're done, Caleb promised, pulling her close. Thank you for understanding, for being so selfless about all of this. I'm not being selfless. I'm being strategic. This is a long game, Caleb. Amanda getting to know Lila again, that's one battle. Us building a life together, that's the war. And I plan to win. He kissed her, slow and thorough, trying to pour all his gratitude and love and need into the connection. When they finally pulled apart, Mara touched his face gently. Go take care of our girl. I'll be here when you get back. Our girl. The word settled something in Caleb's chest, a reminder that no matter what happened today, Lila had people who loved her. Not just him anymore, but Mara too. A whole chosen family built on showing up and staying. Lila appeared in the kitchen dressed in jeans and her favorite sweater, the blue one Mara had bought her for Christmas. Her hair was pulled back in a neat ponytail, and she'd put on minimal makeup, enough to look older, more in control. You ready for this? Caleb asked. No, but I don't think I'll ever be ready, so we might as well get it over with. The drive downtown was quiet. Caleb tried several times to start a conversation, to fill the silence with reassurance or distraction, but Lila seemed content to just stare out the window, lost in her own thoughts. They arrived 15 minutes early. Caleb had done that intentionally, wanting to claim their space before Amanda showed up. They chose a table near the back, visible but not central, and ordered drinks they probably wouldn't finish. At exactly 2 o'clock, Amanda walked through the door. Caleb barely recognized her. She'd cut her hair short, bleached it blonde, lost weight she hadn't needed to lose. She looked polished and professional in expensive clothes and perfect makeup. But there was something brittle about her, something that suggested the polish was armor against her own uncertainty. Her eyes scanned the coffee shop, landing on their table. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at Lila with an expression Caleb couldn't quite read. Then she walked toward them with careful, measured steps. "Lila," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "You've grown so much." Lila said nothing, her face carefully neutral. Beside her, Caleb felt his protective instincts flare, ready to intervene at the first sign of distress. Amanda slid into the chair across from them, her movements tentative. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. I know this must be difficult." "Difficult doesn't begin to cover it," Lila said, her voice steady despite the emotion Caleb could see churning beneath the surface. "No, I suppose it doesn't." Amanda's hand shook as she set her purse on the table. "I've been practicing what to say for weeks. Had this whole speech prepared about how sorry I am, about how I've changed. But looking at you now, all of that feels inadequate." "It is inadequate," Lila said bluntly. "You left. You didn't call or write or send birthday cards? For 5 years you pretended I didn't exist, and now you want to what? Be my mom again? Like nothing happened?" Amanda flinched. "No, I don't expect that. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. Because I made the biggest mistake of my life when I walked away from you, and I've spent every day since then regretting it." "Then why didn't you come back sooner?" The question burst out of Lila like a dam breaking. "If you regretted it so much, why did it take 5 years? Why now?" Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "Because I was a coward. Because I was ashamed and broken and convinced you were better off without me. I had to hit rock bottom before I could start climbing back up. Had to spend time in therapy, working through my issues, becoming someone capable of being a mother." "And you think you're capable now? After all this time?" "I don't know," Amanda said honestly. "But I want to try. I want to know you, Lila, the young woman you've become. I want to be part of your life in whatever capacity you'll allow." Lila sat back, arms crossed. "Why? What changed? Did you suddenly develop maternal instincts? Or did someone tell you that abandoning your kid was bad for your image?" The harshness of the words made Caleb wince, but he didn't intervene. This was Lila's moment, her chance to ask the question she'd been carrying for 5 years. Amanda took the hit without deflecting. "I got sober. That's what changed. I didn't realize how much I was self-medicating until I finally stopped. And once I was clear-headed, once I could actually see what I'd done, the devastation I'd caused, I knew I had to at least try to make amends." "You were drinking." This was news to Caleb. Amanda had always been a social drinker, but he'd never considered it a problem. "More than drinking, pills too. Anything to numb the overwhelming anxiety of being a mother when I didn't know how to be one. When every day felt like drowning." Amanda looked at Caleb for the first time. "I'm not making excuses. I'm just trying to explain. I was sick, and instead of getting help, I ran away. And Lila paid the price for my cowardice." Lila's expression had shifted from defensive to uncertain. "You were an addict?" "I was self-destructive. Whether that makes me an addict, I don't know. But I was using substances to cope instead of dealing with my problems. And when that stopped working, when I realized I was going to destroy all of us if I stayed, I left. I thought I was protecting you. Now I understand I was just taking the easy way out." The coffee shop hummed with other conversations, other families going about their Saturday afternoon. But at their table, time felt suspended, 3 people trapped in a moment of painful honesty. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Lila said finally, her voice small. "I don't know if I want to." "That's okay," Amanda said. "Forgiveness isn't something you owe me. It's something you give yourself when you're ready, if you're ever ready." "I have a life now," Lila continued, strength returning to her voice. "A good life. Dad and we're okay. We're more than okay, and we have Mara now too. Lila's voice caught. She's been more of a mother to me in 1 year than you were in 7. The words were cruel, designed to wound, and Caleb saw them hit their mark. Amanda's face crumpled, fresh tears spilling over. I'm glad, she whispered. I'm glad you have someone. Someone who shows up for you the way I should have. Don't do that, Lila said sharply. Don't pretend to be noble about this. You don't get to be happy that someone else is parenting your daughter. You're right. I'm not happy about it. I'm devastated. But I'm also grateful, because at least you weren't alone. At least your father found someone who could give you what I couldn't. Caleb spoke for the first time, his voice measured. Amanda, what exactly are you hoping for here? What does a relationship between you and Lila look like in your mind? Amanda turned to him, seeming to really see him for the first time. I don't know. Maybe phone calls sometimes, or coffee like this once a month. I'm not trying to disrupt her life or take her away from you. I just want a chance to know her, to be present, even in a limited capacity. And if Lila says no, if she decides she doesn't want any contact, then I respect that. As much as it would kill me, I respect it. This has to be her choice, Caleb. Not mine, not yours, not some court's. Hers. Lila had been quiet, processing. Now she said slowly, I need time. Time to think about whether I even want you in my life. Time to talk to Dad and Mara. Time to figure out what this would look like. Take all the time you need, Amanda said. I've waited 5 years. I can wait longer. And if I decide I want nothing to do with you, then I'll respect that decision and won't contact you again. But Lila, I hope you'll at least consider giving me a chance. A small one. Because I promise you, I'm not the same person who left. And I hope, I might be someone worth knowing now. They sat in painful silence for another moment. Then Lila stood abruptly. I need to leave. This is too much. Caleb stood immediately, ready to follow, but Amanda remained seated, her face a mask of controlled grief. Thank you for coming, she said to Lila, for being brave enough to face me. You're an incredible young woman. Your father has done an amazing job raising you. Lila hesitated, then said stiffly, Goodbye, Amanda. Not Mom, not Mother. Amanda. The formality of it was deliberate, a boundary clearly drawn. They left the coffee shop and walked to the truck in silence. Lila held herself together until they were inside with the doors closed. Then she shattered, sobbing with the kind of intensity that only comes from years of repressed pain finally finding release. Caleb held her, letting her cry, murmuring meaningless reassurances into her hair. They sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, while Lila worked through the storm of emotion, her body shaking with the force of it. When she finally quieted, hiccuping and spent, she pulled back and wiped her eyes. I don't know what to do, she said. Part of me wants to give her a chance. Part of me wants to never see her again. And I feel guilty for both of those feelings. You don't have to decide today, Caleb said gently. You don't have to decide this week. Take your time. Process your feelings. Talk to Mara. Whatever you choose, we'll support you. What do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever feels right for you. Not what you think I want, not what Amanda wants, not what makes anyone else comfortable. What do you need, Lila? That's the only question that matters. She leaned her head on his shoulder, exhausted. I need to go home. I need Mara. I need our family. Then let's go home. They drove back in silence, but it was different from the tense quiet of the morning. This was processing silence, healing silence, the kind that came after a wound had been lanced and was starting to drain. Mara was waiting when they pulled into the driveway, sitting on the porch steps with Picasso beside her. She stood as they approached, her face a question. Layla walked straight into her arms, holding on like Mara was the only solid thing in a spinning world. I've got you, Mara murmured. I've got you, sweetheart. They stayed like that for a long moment, the three of them huddled together in their driveway while the afternoon light faded toward evening. And Caleb thought about families, the ones you're born into and the ones you build, the people who leave and the people who stay, the wounds that never fully heal, and the love that grows strong enough to carry them anyway. That night, after Lila had gone to bed emotionally exhausted, Caleb and Mara sat in their bedroom, talking through everything that had happened. She was sober, Caleb said. Articulate, self-aware. Nothing like the woman who left 5 years ago. People can change, Mara said carefully. The question is whether the change is real and lasting or just temporary remorse. She wants a relationship with Lila. Limited contact, phone calls, maybe coffee once a month. How does Lila feel about that? Confused, angry, guilty, the whole range. Caleb rubbed his face, exhaustion pulling at him. I don't know what to tell her. How do I help her navigate this when I'm so angry myself? Mara was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. I think you have to separate your anger from Lila's needs. Your feelings about Amanda are valid. She hurt you too, destroyed your family. But Lila's relationship with her mother is separate from yours. She needs space to figure out what she wants without carrying your baggage too. You sound like a therapist. I sound like someone who lost a parent and knows that unresolved relationships haunt you. My dad and I had issues when my mom died. We never really worked through them before he passed. And now I'll never have that chance. I don't want that for Lila. You think she should give Amanda a chance. I think she should do whatever helps her find peace. If that's reconciliation, great. If it's setting firm boundaries or cutting contact entirely, that's fine too. But it has to be her choice, made from a place of clarity rather than fear or anger. Caleb pulled her close, grateful for her wisdom even when it complicated his own feelings. What did I do to deserve you? Showed up, Mara said, echoing her earlier words. Every single day. For Lila, and eventually for me too. That's what you do, Caleb. You show up, you stay. You build something solid when everything else is falling apart. We build it, he corrected. Together. Together, she agreed, and kissed him softly. The next few weeks were a careful balance of giving Lila space to process, while also being available when she needed to talk. She didn't mention Amanda much, but Caleb caught her staring at her phone sometimes, as if debating whether to reach out. Finally, on a Wednesday evening in early April, she came to them with a decision. I want to try, she said, sitting across from them at the dinner table. Not a full relationship, not calling her mom or pretending the last 5 years didn't happen, but maybe coffee once a month, maybe phone calls occasionally, just to see if she's really changed. Are you sure? Caleb asked. You don't have to do this just because you think you should. I'm not. I'm doing it because I need to know. Need to see if she means what she says, because if I don't try, I'll always wonder, and I don't want to spend my life wondering. Mara reached across the table, taking Lila's hand. That's incredibly mature and brave. Whatever happens, we're proud of you. And if it goes badly, Lila's voice was small. If she disappears again? Then we deal with it, Caleb said firmly. Together, like we deal with everything. But Lila, this time will be different, because you're choosing this from a position of strength, not need. You don't need Amanda. You have everything you need right here. This is just you being generous enough to let her try to earn back what she lost. Lila nodded, tears in her eyes. Can you email her lawyer? Set up another meeting? Of course, sweetheart. We'll do whatever you need. That night, Caleb sent the email, feeling like he was opening a door he'd spent 5 years keeping locked. But maybe that was okay. Maybe some doors needed to be opened, even when you were terrified of what might come through. The second meeting with Amanda went better than the first. Lila was calmer, more controlled, and Amanda seemed genuinely committed to respecting boundaries and moving at Lila's pace. They talked about small things, school, art, Lila's state showcase win. Amanda asked questions and actually listened to the answers, not trying to insert herself or make the conversation about her regrets. When they left the coffee shop, Lila seemed lighter somehow. Not healed, but less burdened. That was okay, she said to Caleb. Not great, but okay. Okay is a good start, he agreed. Over the next few months, they settled into a routine. Coffee with Amanda once a month, occasional text messages, brief phone calls where they talked about surface things without diving into the painful past. It wasn't a real mother-daughter relationship, but it was something. A tentative connection built on Amanda's consistency and Lila's cautious willingness to try. And through it all, Mara remained steady, present but not pushy, supportive but not threatened. She gave Lila space to explore her relationship with Amanda while also being there for the hard moments, the doubts, the times when old wounds reopened. One evening in late May, Caleb found Mara sitting in their bedroom, looking at something on her phone with an expression he couldn't quite read. "What's wrong?" he asked. She looked up, startled. "Nothing's wrong. I was just—" She hesitated, then held out her phone. "Amanda sent me a friend request. On social media." Caleb felt his stomach drop. "What?" "Yeah, with a message. Want to read it?" He took the phone, scanning the brief note. "Thank you for loving my daughter when I couldn't. I know we'll never be friends, but I want you to know I'm grateful for everything you've done for Lila. She's lucky to have you." The words were simple, genuine, and probably harder for Amanda to write than any apology to Lila had been. This was acknowledging her replacement, accepting that someone else had stepped into the role she'd abandoned. "What are you going to do?" Caleb asked, handing back the phone. "I don't know. Part of me wants to accept to build some kind of cordial relationship for Lila's sake. Part of me thinks that's overstepping, that Amanda and I should stay in separate lanes. What does Lila think?" "I haven't told her yet. Wanted to talk to you first." Caleb sat beside her, taking her hand. "I think you should do whatever feels authentic to you. Don't accept out of obligation or politeness. But if you genuinely think having some kind of relationship with Amanda would help Lila navigate having both of you in her life, then maybe it's worth exploring." Mara was quiet for a long moment. Then she typed out a brief response, her fingers moving quickly across the screen. "I told her I'd think about it, that I appreciate the message, but need time to consider what makes sense." "That's fair." "This is so weird," Mara said, setting her phone down. "Navigating a relationship with my boyfriend's ex-wife who abandoned their daughter and is now trying to rebuild her life. There's no handbook for this." "No," Caleb agreed. "There really isn't. We're making it up as we go." "Story of our life," Mara said with a small smile. "Just improvising and hoping we don't screw everything up too badly. For what it's worth, I think we're doing pretty well. Lila's happy, we're happy. Even Amanda seems to be finding some peace. That's more than I could have hoped for 6 months ago." 6 months ago, you were terrified I'd walk away when things got complicated." "I was. Turns out I should have given you more credit." Mara leaned her head on his shoulder. "I'm not going anywhere, Caleb, not for Amanda, not for complications, not for anything. This is where I belong, with you and Lila. Forever." "Forever," he echoed, and meant it with every fiber of his being. Outside their window, spring was giving way to early summer, the days growing longer and warmer. And inside their home, their real, chosen, built from broken pieces home, 3 people were learning that families didn't have to be perfect to be real. They just had to keep showing up, keep choosing each other, keep believing that love was worth the risk. Summer arrived with the kind of warmth that made Seattle residents forget the 9 months of gray they'd endured. The days stretched long and golden, and the house on Maple Street seemed to expand with the season, filled with laughter and music and the comfortable chaos of a family learning to be whole. Lila's relationship with Amanda remained cautious but steady. They met monthly, sometimes more often, and gradually the conversations deepened beyond surface pleasantries. Amanda shared stories about her time in therapy, about the hard work of becoming someone worthy of a second chance. Lila listened, asked questions, set boundaries when needed, and slowly, so slowly, began to see her mother as a flawed human being rather than just the woman who'd abandoned her. It wasn't forgiveness, not exactly, but it was something. A fragile bridge being built one careful conversation at a time. On a Saturday in mid-June, Caleb was in the backyard attempting to fix the fence that had been listing dangerously for months. He was elbow-deep in post-hole digging when Mara appeared with lemonade and that expression she got when she had something important to say. "What's wrong?" he asked, accepting the glass gratefully. "Nothing's wrong, but I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear me out before you react." Caleb's stomach tightened. That's a terrifying way to start a conversation. "I know, sorry." Mara sat on the porch steps and Caleb joined her, suddenly aware of how serious she looked. "I've been thinking about something for a while now. About us. About our future. About what comes next." "Mara, if you're having second thoughts, I'm not. That's not what this is." She took his hand, squeezing tight. "I want to marry you, Caleb. I want to make this official, permanent, legal. I want to be Lila's stepmom in reality, not just in practice. I want us to be a real family, On paper and in every other way. Caleb felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. Are you proposing to me? No, I'm telling you what I want. What I've wanted for months but was too afraid to say because I didn't want to pressure you or make you feel rushed. She turned to face him fully. But I'm tired of being afraid, tired of waiting for the perfect moment. Life is short and unpredictable, and I don't want to waste any more time pretending I'm okay with the ambiguity. I want to marry you. I want to be your wife. And I want to know if you want the same thing. Caleb's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. Marriage. He'd done it once before, and it had ended in devastation. But this, Mara, was nothing like Amanda. This was real and solid and built on truth instead of illusion. I want that too, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I've wanted it for longer than I was willing to admit. But Mara, I need to do this right. I need to ask Lila first, make sure she's okay with it, and then I need to propose to you properly, not just agree to your declaration in the backyard while I'm covered in dirt. Mara's smile was radiant. You want to ask Lila's permission? I want to make sure she knows she's part of this decision, that we're not just making choices about her life without including her voice. When did you become so wise about parenting? When I fell in love with a woman who taught me that family is about choice and inclusion, not just biology and control. They sat together on the porch steps, hands clasped, watching the afternoon light filter through the trees. And Caleb felt something settle in his chest, certainty, peace, the bone-deep knowledge that this was right. That evening, after dinner, Caleb asked Lila to join him on the porch swing. She came willingly, though her expression was curious and slightly wary. Am I in trouble? She asked, settling beside him. No, sweetheart. The opposite, actually. I need to talk to you about something important. About Mara. Lila's entire face lit up. Are you finally going to propose to her? Caleb blinked. How did you… Dad, come on. You've been carrying around Grandma's ring in your desk drawer for 3 months. I saw it when I was looking for stamps. You went through my desk? You left it unlocked, and I'm nosy. But seriously, it's about time. What took you so long? Caleb couldn't help but laugh. I wanted to make sure you were okay with it, that you'd be comfortable with Mara becoming your stepmom officially. Lila was quiet for a moment, her expression growing serious. Can I ask you something first? Anything. If you marry Mara, does that mean Amanda stops being my mom? Like, legally? No, sweetheart. Amanda will always be your biological mother. Nothing changes that. Mara would be your stepmother, which means you'd have 2 mother figures in your life. 3 parents instead of 2. What if Amanda gets upset? What if she thinks Mara is trying to replace her? Then we explain that it's not about replacement, it's about addition. You're allowed to have multiple people who love you and care for you. That doesn't diminish anyone's role. Lila nodded slowly, processing. Then, with the bluntness of a 12-year-old, do you love Mara more than you loved Mom? The question landed like a punch. Caleb took a breath, choosing his words carefully. I love Mara differently than I loved your mother. What I had with Amanda was complicated and ultimately unhealthy. What I have with Mara is built on friendship and respect and genuine partnership. So yes, in a lot of ways, I love Mara more deeply, but that doesn't erase the fact that your mother and I created you, which is the best thing either of us ever did. That's a good answer, Lila said approvingly. Very diplomatic. Years of practice, so what do you think about me proposing to Mara? Lila threw her arms around him, squeezing tight. I think it's perfect. I think Mara's perfect for us. And I think if you don't propose soon, I'm going to do it for you because this waiting is ridiculous. Caleb held his daughter, feeling emotion tighten his throat. I love you, Lila Grace. You know that, right? I know, Dad, and I love you too, both of you. Both of us? You and Mara. You're a package deal now. Can't love one without the other. It was perhaps the most perfect thing she could have said. Caleb spent the next week planning. He enlisted Lila's help, swearing her to secrecy, and together they designed something that felt authentically them. Not a grand public gesture, but something intimate and meaningful. The plan came together on a Friday evening in late June. Caleb told Mara they were having a special dinner to celebrate Lila's last day of 7th grade. Nothing fancy, just the 3 of them and a meal on the back porch. Mara arrived home from Lincoln High to find the porch transformed. String lights hung overhead, casting warm golden light over the table Caleb had set with their nicest dishes. Candles flickered in mason jars, and flowers from their garden filled small vases scattered across the space. "What's all this?" Mara asked, delight and suspicion warring on her face. "Celebration dinner," Caleb said casually. "Lila survived 7th grade. That deserves recognition." "It really does," Lila agreed, playing along. 7th grade was brutal. They ate slowly, savoring food Caleb had spent all afternoon preparing. The conversation flowed easily, full of laughter and gentle teasing, the comfortable rhythm of people who knew each other deeply. As the sky darkened and stars began to appear, Lila excused herself with an elaborate yawn. "I'm exhausted, going to head to bed early. You guys enjoy the rest of the evening." She disappeared inside, leaving Caleb and Mara alone under the string lights and emerging stars. "That was the least subtle exit I've ever seen," Mara said, amusement in her voice. "What's going on? Did you two plan something?" "Maybe," Caleb admitted. He stood, extending his hand. "Dance with me?" "There's no music." "There's always music if you listen carefully enough." Mara let him pull her to her feet, and they swayed together in the quiet evening, no sound but the distant hum of the city and the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. Caleb breathed in the scent of her shampoo, felt the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against his chest, and thought about all the moments that had led them here. "I have a confession," he said quietly. "Only one?" Mara teased. "Well, several, but one big one." He pulled back slightly so he could see her face. "I've never been kissed." Mara's brow furrowed in confusion. "What?" "Caleb, we've been kissing for months. Not like that. I mean, I've never been kissed by my wife. Never had that moment where you kiss the person you've committed your whole life to in front of everyone you love, making it official and permanent." Understanding dawned in Mara's eyes, along with something that looked like hope and fear mixed together. Caleb reached into his pocket, pulling out the small velvet box that had been burning a hole there all evening. He didn't drop to one knee. That felt too formal, too performative for what they were. Instead, he just opened the box, revealing his grandmother's ring, the simple gold band with 3 small diamonds that had survived 60 years of marriage and still looked beautiful. "Mara Bennett, you walked into my life when I'd convinced myself I didn't need anyone. You saw my daughter when she needed to be seen most. You sacrificed your classroom, navigated my baggage, dealt with my ex-wife's reappearance, and somehow still chose to stay. You taught me that rules were meant to be broken, that love was worth the risk, that family is built through choice and consistency, not just biology." His voice cracked slightly. "I know I'm difficult. I know I come with complications. But I'm asking anyway. Will you marry me? Will you be my wife and Lila's stepmom and the person I build the rest of my life with?" Mara's eyes were streaming tears, her hands covering her mouth. For a terrifying moment, she just stood there, and Caleb's heart plummeted. Had he misread this? Had she changed her mind? Then she nodded, hands dropping to grab his face, pulling him into a kiss that was part laughter, part tears, part overwhelming joy. "Yes," she said against his lips. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Caleb slipped the ring onto her finger, and it fit perfectly, like it had been waiting all these years for exactly this hand. They stood together under the string lights, holding each other and crying and laughing, and Caleb heard the back door open. Lila appeared on the porch, phone in hand, clearly having recorded the entire thing through the window. "Finally," she declared. "I thought you were going to talk forever. Did you say yes, Mara? Please tell me you said yes, because I already told Maya in half my art class that I was getting a stepmom." "I said yes," Mara confirmed, laughing through her tears. "Come here, you." Lila launched herself at them, and they caught her in a group embrace, the 3 of them holding each other while the summer stars emerged overhead. This was family, Caleb thought. Not the broken pieces they'd started with, but something new and whole and chosen. The wedding planning began immediately, with Lila inserting herself as the unofficial coordinator. She had opinions about everything: the flowers, the music, the guest list, the menu. Mara indulged her patiently, understanding that this was Lila's way of claiming ownership over the new family they were building. "What about Amanda?" Mara asked one evening as they pored over potential venues. "Do we invite her?" The question made both Caleb and Lila freeze. That's complicated, Caleb said carefully. Everything's complicated, Mara countered. But she's Lila's mother, and we've been trying to build bridges, not burn them. Maybe this is an opportunity to show her she's not being replaced, just that the family is expanding. Lila was quiet for a long moment. Then, voice small. What if she comes and ruins it? What if she makes it about her and her feelings? Then we ask her to leave, Mara said firmly. This is our day, Lila's and mine and your dad's. But I think we should at least extend the invitation. Give her the choice to be part of this moment or not. What happens after that is on her. When did you become so generous? Caleb asked, genuinely curious. When I realized that holding grudges takes more energy than extending grace. And honestly, Amanda showing up is a risk I'm willing to take if it means Lila doesn't spend her entire life wondering if things could have been different. So they invited Amanda. A simple card in the mail with the date and venue, and a handwritten note from Lila that said simply, I want you there if you want to be there. No pressure. Just know you're welcome. Amanda's response came 3 days later. A text to Lila that said, I'd be honored. Thank you for including me. I promise to respect that this is your family's day, not mine. The wedding was set for late August, small and intimate. Just close friends, a few colleagues, and family, both the biological kind and the chosen kind. They'd picked a garden venue overlooking the water, simple and beautiful and quintessentially Seattle. As the date approached, Caleb found himself surprisingly calm. He'd been terrified the first time he got married, consumed with doubt and worry that he was making a mistake. This time, there was only certainty, only peace. The morning of the wedding, he woke early to find Lila already in the kitchen, making pancakes with the concentration of a surgeon. Big day, she said without looking up. Huge day, he agreed, pouring coffee. You nervous? Not even a little bit. Good, because Mara's perfect for you, and if you mess this up, I'd never forgive you. Caleb smiled, ruffling her hair. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Always. She flipped a pancake expertly. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. After you marry Mara, can I call her Mom? Or is that weird because Amanda's still in the picture? Caleb felt his throat tighten. Have you talked to Mara about this? Not yet. Wanted to ask you first. Make sure you'd be okay with it. Sweetheart, Mara has been more of a mother to you than Amanda ever was. If you want to call her Mom, that's between you and her. But I think it would mean the world to her. Lila nodded, blinking back tears. Okay. Good. Because that's what I want. Amanda can be Amanda. But Mara, she's earned the title. The ceremony itself was simple and perfect. Caleb stood under an arbor of flowers with the water sparkling behind him, watching Mara walk toward him in a simple white dress that took his breath away. Lila walked beside her, serving as both maid of honor and the one giving Mara away, her role in joining this family acknowledged and celebrated. Amanda sat in the back, quiet and respectful, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter help build a family that didn't center around her. It couldn't have been easy, but she stayed and she smiled, and when it was time for the reception, she approached Caleb with genuine grace. Congratulations, she said quietly. Mara is incredible. You're very lucky. I know, Caleb said. Thank you for coming. It means a lot to Lila. Thank you for letting me be part of this, even in a small way. I know I don't deserve it. Maybe not, Caleb said honestly, but we're trying to build something better than what we had, trying to show Lila that people can change, that families can evolve, that forgiveness is possible even when it's hard. Amanda nodded, wiping her eyes. I won't stay for the whole reception. I know my presence is still complicated, but I wanted to be here for the ceremony, to witness Lila being part of something beautiful. She left shortly after, but not before hugging Lila and telling her how proud she was. Lila accepted the embrace stiffly, but without pulling away, and Caleb saw the progress in that small gesture. The reception was full of laughter and dancing and toasts that made everyone cry and laugh in equal measure. Lila's speech was the highlight, equal parts funny and heartfelt, talking about how Mara had taught her that family was about showing up, about seeing people for who they really were, about choosing love even when it was complicated. My dad taught me that staying is a choice you make every single day, Lila said, her voice steady despite the emotion. And Mara taught me that being chosen is just as powerful as choosing. Together they taught me that families don't have to be perfect to be real. They just have to be brave enough to keep trying. When Caleb and Mara finally had their first dance as husband and wife, the world seemed to fall away. It was just the two of them, swaying together under string lights and stars, celebrating a love that had grown from broken pieces into something unshakable. "I've never been kissed," Mara whispered against his ear, echoing the words from that night in the kitchen so many months ago. "Not true anymore, Mrs. Turner," Caleb said, and kissed her thoroughly, to the applause and cheers of everyone they loved. The months following the wedding settled into a new rhythm. Mara officially adopted Turner as her last name, moved the remainder of her belongings from storage into their home, and began the process of legally becoming Lila's step-parent. It was paperwork and court dates and bureaucracy, but underneath it all was the simple truth. They were a family, recognized by law and by love. Lila started 8th grade with a confidence that hadn't been there before. She'd submitted her state showcase portfolio to several summer art programs and been accepted to all of them. She chose one at a prestigious art school in California, 3 weeks the following summer, that would push her skills and connect her with other young artists. "You sure about this?" Caleb asked when she showed him the acceptance letter. "California's far away. You'd be gone for almost a month." "I'm sure," Lila said firmly. "And Dad?" "I'll be fine. You and Mom taught me that I'm strong enough to handle hard things." "Mom." She'd started calling Mara that naturally, without announcement or ceremony. Just one day the word had slipped out, and Mara had burst into tears, and Lila had rolled her eyes and said, "Well, yeah, obviously, you're my mom. Why are you crying?" Amanda had handled it with more grace than Caleb expected. When Lila told her during one of their monthly coffee dates, Amanda had simply said, "I'm glad you have her. Every kid deserves a mother who shows up. I'm working on being that person for you, but I'm grateful you don't have to wait for me to figure it out." It wasn't perfect. There were still hard days, moments when old wounds reopened or new challenges emerged, but they faced them together, the three of them, with the foundation of love and commitment that made even the difficult days bearable. On a Saturday in late October, Caleb found himself sitting on the porch swing with both his wife and daughter, watching the autumn leaves fall like gold coins across the yard. Lila was sketching in her notebook. Mara was grading papers, and Caleb was simply existing in the moment, aware of how precious it was. "What are you thinking about?" Mara asked, noticing his expression. "Just how different things are from a year ago. How much has changed?" "For the better?" Lila asked, looking up from her sketch. "For the absolute best," Caleb confirmed. That night, after Lila had gone to bed, Caleb and Mara sat in their bedroom, the house quiet around them. "Do you remember that first parent-teacher conference?" Caleb asked. "When I walked in and saw you with Lila, and something in my chest just shifted?" "I remember thinking you were terrified," Mara said, smiling at the memory. "And so protective, and completely devoted to your daughter in a way that made me want to know you better. I fought falling in love with you so hard. I know, your rules were very impressive, very thorough, and you demolished every single one of them. Not demolished, just showed you they didn't serve you anymore. That protection can turn into isolation if you're not careful." Caleb pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to love us. For seeing past all my defenses. For showing Lila what it looks like when someone chooses to stay. For giving me a second chance at getting this right." "You were already getting it right," Mara said softly. "You'd built a beautiful life with Lila. I just got lucky enough to be invited into it." "We're the lucky ones," Caleb corrected. "Trust me." They fell asleep tangled together, comfortable and secure in the life they'd built. And in the room down the hall, Lila slept with her state showcase trophy on her nightstand and sketches pinned to her walls, dreams of art school and future possibilities filling her mind. The family she'd thought was broken forever had been rebuilt into something even stronger. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real, because it was chosen, because it was built on the foundation of people who showed up every single day and decided that love was worth the risk. Years later, when people asked Caleb about his greatest accomplishment, he never mentioned the award-winning buildings he'd designed or the prestigious commissions he'd completed. Instead, he talked about a Tuesday evening in September, when a paint-stained art teacher walked into their lives and taught them that the rules designed to protect your heart could also keep it closed. He talked about breaking those rules, about choosing courage over fear, about the moment he realized that loving Mara wasn't a risk at all. It was the safest thing he'd ever done. Because some people don't just walk into your life, they walk into your soul, rearrange the furniture, knock down walls you didn't know you'd built, and make you wonder how you ever lived in such a small space before. Mara Bennett Turner was that person for Caleb, and for Lila, and for the family they built together from broken pieces and brave choices and one whispered confession that changed everything. I've never been kissed. It seemed impossible now, looking back, because Mara had been kissed thousands of times since that night, by the man who loved her completely, in the home they'd built together, surrounded by the daughter they both cherished. And every single kiss was a promise kept, a rule broken, a choice made to live fully instead of safely. In the end, that was the only thing that mattered. Not the fear of what could go wrong, but the courage to reach for what might go beautifully, impossibly, perfectly right. And it had. Against all odds and expectations, it absolutely had.